introduce it quickly before we do Damien, because Damien walked through the.
So we are live, so good morning. It is
Good morning, everybody.
Friday, April 26th, it's 7 economic development, housing and general affairs. Before we get started, we want to wish a very happy birthday to our vice chair, Senator Clarkson. It sounds like Olivia got you something to feast your eyes on, but Magali got you something to actually feast on.
Oh my God. Oh, this is so exciting. So this means, of course, we have to have a break.
I thought you meant we have to sing, so.
You can sing, but we have to have a break.
Okay.
Do it together
Okay,
at some point.
we will make a break happen even if it's 2 minutes.
Should I take a second at least to see what's
Yeah,
inside?
just see what's inside.
Magali. This is so exciting. Anyway, this is what 69 looks like.
Yay. You what? No one already tell our husbands Lovely.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I've heard a lot of complaints about members in both bodies who, oh my God, this is fabulous. These are incredible treats from Bohemian. I mean, my favorite croissant in the entire world.
Yeah.
Croissant.
And you get,
Magali knows
you can eat all of them if you want to.
Oh.
You can eat 69 croissants.
But then I wouldn't be so happy about saying this is what 69 looks like. I'd be a live.
Only for a day.
I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to pass it around, but I'm going to be really selfish and take it on croissant.
Doesn't count as selfish on your birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to.
Ooh, that's a beautiful one.
Isn't that gorgeous? And I'm not even going to offer to share it.
So even though it's your birthday, I have to ask somebody who's hosting.
Oh,
Oh,
probably not.
Okay, although I love you, but I'm so excited.
I'm turning it off.
Thank you.
I've never, oh my God, okay. So
It's her birthday.
I know, I know.
as we pass it, so Carrie, this is what you're gonna miss by not being here. But there's almond croissant, there's some incredible jam event.
It was called Fruit and Puff Pastry.
Oh, and
I
there,
like jam event, right?
And those are Queen of Moms.
oh my God, these are fabulous. Okay, I may have to have two things, but maybe not at the same time. So we pass it around and Magali,
I'll come in a little bit.
Wendy, thank you.
But are we?
And Magali, thank you.
I will do the jam event. Can I have a napkin?
You may, you could even have a plate, you may say, gosh, I have a plate.
So, Damien, why don't we get started with changes to the bill?
And then Madam Chair, we have Carrie Brown who kindly took the time
She did.
that we did not have in committee to help us answer a number of the questions the chamber has raised, that were raised during our committee.
Yeah,
So I would love to have, because
yes,
some
we
of the
will do Carrie, right?
responses are incorporated in the draft proposal that Wendy and I are putting before you.
Okay, so you're okay with Damien going first?
Well, what do you think, Damien and Carrie? It might
Whatever you'd like.
might make sense for Carrie to address the questions first and then for us.
I saw her FAQ and I'd like to see the language changes and then
Okay.
hear how the language changes reflect the questions that came up.
Okay, well, I'm having technical difficulties
Okay.
for a moment.
Do we have a copy of the bill?
No, Damien,
I don't know
Yeah, we
why
have a
it is
copy
that
of the bill,
legislative
but
IT always starts.
It's somewhere,
breaking.
we didn't put new ones. We had it when we walked through it and I gave you mine.
And
I have a second.
oh, right. Oh,
I have a second copy.
you know what? I might have it in my bed. I'm sorry.
Thank you all. Thank you, Magali. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Keisha. This is such a great way to start the day. And
The big.
it's Friday, which is even better.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me give you a copy. I have a copy, an extra copy.
It's actually.
I see what you're talking about.
And for people listening, Carrie Brown's terrific memo responses to our questions is posted online now under this bill, page 704. And here is an extra copy for you, Wendy.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
And okay,
That report too.
Alright. So Damien, are you still having technical difficulty?
No,
Okay.
I am okay now.
Okay.
So,
you've always been okay.
just okay though.
You're gonna be more.
Okay, it's not bad.
I've got it.
I feel like an 80s self-help book here.
Is that because of the 69 part?
No, just,
Wow.
Sorry.
we're just gonna. Okay, folks, we're gonna clean the slate here. Just pretend we haven't said anything to each other this
I
morning.
might need a moment.
Sorry.
It's good that you have young children.
This is my, yeah.
We knew Allison was gonna turn 69 one day. That this would happen.
Have a drink.
So early for this.
Oh, man.
And be fortified.
All right.
So while we're all getting a drink, I would just like to say, thank you to the chair. Wendy and I have been working on this with Damien and Carrie, an enormous resource, and our house members who have been terrific partners in trying to get this across the line. So, Ray, Ashley, and somebody else I know that I'm forgetting. But, thank you to all of them as well.
Mhm.
And thank you to our terrific websites that in fact have all the documents that have been submitted. So all the business support of this for VBSR and Vermont Business Roundtable
Oh,
are
I
all.
thought you just thanked the websites for some reason.
You can see all.
Complimented the website.
Oh,
I complimented them. I actually am happier with the website than I thought I was. Not that I know how to use it. Better. Okay, Damien, you now have I vamped enough to help you.
Sure. All right,
Okay.
let me know when we're actually online.
Oh, we've
We
been
are,
on.
we are live. Okay, great.
So the entire world sadly knows.
Yeah.
Hello, YouTube.
We live to entertain.
It's
And
Friday. Okay, for the record, I'm Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. We're all a little punchy this morning. Bear with us. So, you have Magali, is the draft posted? Yeah.
I don't think I have it.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Let me send this to Magali.
Oh, this is so
Sorry.
lovely. I love this card. I love these cards. And it goes with her flowers, so it's like,
You could put it up there.
And it's
Yeah.
red.
thank you. Oh.
Magali, I just sent it. I'm sorry.
It's okay. With the
So-
Wi-Fi signal, it could take anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes.
So,
Yeah.
It might.
Well, why don't I join the meeting so people can at least look at the screen,
Yes,
oh, good.
that's
Okay.
great.
That's
and
great.
then we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay, I'm adding this to our mantle of prettiness.
All right, so for anyone watching the replay, you can just skip ahead a minute or two. And then we'll be testifying.
We need background
I
music.
apologize to the witnesses who are hanging out here with me,
I also just wanna say, I
watching me
finished,
sweat.
I finished all my confirmations.
You
I.
think you talked to everybody?
Mhm.
Oh, great, I just emailed them all and asked
Great,
for time to talk.
okay, Wendy,
Getting there.
progress this weekend.
Getting there.
I
Oh,
think
yeah, totally.
Alex Farrell is the only person who needs to on the floor.
Correct,
Okay,
correct. He's the only commissioner.
so we will forward that, I don't even know, I learned last night what we're supposed to do. Like, so,
Yeah, we forward it like,
Right.
almost like it's a bill, then it'll go on, notice. Then we'll take it up probably next Friday. And I will hope to have mine done so that we can get them in, so we can do them all next Friday.
right,
Cause I've got a whole bunch of, board members.
Yes.
Yeah, so I emailed them all last night, that's part why I didn't,
Mm.
say online. I'm already in enough hot water.
didn't you want us to go to Gary with that, like?
There.
Oh, he's almost there.
Oh, there,
Almost
okay.
there. All right. All right, thank you for bearing with me. Can you make me a co-host, Magali?
I just did, but.
All right, thank you so much. Great. Okay, good morning again. Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. You have the new draft in front of you. I have highlighted where there are changes in the draft. So the first change suggested by the Commission on Women is to just require that the job advertisements include the compensation or range of compensation for the job opening, rather than also including a job description.
Yeah.
So. And the second change here is to update the definition of range of compensation. Which means the minimum and maximum annual salary or hourly wage for a job opening that the employer expects in good faith to pay for the advertised job at the time the employer creates the advertisement.
So this does allow them to say it starts at $15 an hour.
To set a maximum too. So you would say $15 to $20 an hour.
So I'd like to change that.
Okay.
Because many, like we hear it on the radio right now with Beta. Starting at $18.50 for overnight, whatever.
Right, so radio advertisement.
Radio
isn't-
excluded.
is
But a lot of,
excluded.
McDonald's says starting at, like I think,
It's okay on radio, that's fine.
yeah, but a lot of people just say starting at. I feel like that's a pretty, you shouldn't have to say a maximum.
I think you should have to say maximum, because this is a negotiation, and I think one of the key things with this bill is that we are enabling people to both negotiate better and the transparency. I think those are the two key pieces.
I think it would create a false advertising though to say starting at $15 an hour, which a lot of people do. That's every sign I've seen.
But a person may be coming in with a lot of experience and may not be starting with that, they may be falling within range of. But could we put a pin in that and
Sure.
and discuss it and have Carrie respond, but I'd love it if we could finish this and then hear Carrie's responses to some of these. But we don't need to.
Yeah.
So, the next piece that this would add in is a clarification that nothing in this section would prevent an employer hiring an employee for more or less than the range of compensation contained in the job advertisement based on circumstances outside of the employer's control, such as the applicant's qualification or labor qualifications or labor market factors. I will note that there is a question that was raised to me from the chamber, the retailers and the bankers this morning about the language here about located outside of Vermont, reports to the supervisor office or worksite in Vermont. So just something to flag that they want to raise with the committee.
Right, and I believe Carrie has thoughts about
And
this.
then, yeah, those are the main changes in the
Okay.
bill. So it's really simplifying the requirement to the range of compensation and defining that.
Back to
but
the
it-
language, because
Yeah.
I thought that, I think the advertising section was really confusing about where you have to post what, like,
So,
just saying it doesn't apply to radio.
Yeah, we exclude things.
Where,
so the definition of an advertisement is written notice in any format of a specific job opening that's made available to potential applicants.
so you think that's clear that,
Can I finish the definition?
yeah,
It does not include general announcements that notify applicants that employment opportunities may exist, but do not identify specific job openings, or verbal announcements that are made in person on the radio, television, or other electronic mediums, such as like a podcast.
And we got
So,
rid of digital or.
yes, you did.
so
So
it has to start with a specific job. Type.
it has to include a specific job.
Okay.
So let me give you some examples.
I
If
still
you
want the
say,
language up, I'm sorry. I
Okay,
just
I'm
wanna keep
sorry.
the language
Sure.
up.
And we're getting.
Yeah, it's helpful to have it.
okay, sorry,
Sorry, Carrie,
I always try to like show the committee conversation.
Yeah.
I'll leave the language up.
but,
So it does have to apply to a specific job opening. So if this passed as written,
mhm,
a help wanted sign, fine.
mhm,
Now hiring cashiers would require a pay range.
okay,
So the, an announcement on the radio, no need to disclose pay range.
Right.
A verbal announcement where you're talking to someone at a job fair and you say, hey, we're hiring people. No need to,
So the
pay
verbal
range.
announcement has to go with electronic.
no, verbal can be in person, radio,
But I mean,
electronic.
electronic is only as it relates to verbal.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing is a general announcement on the website. So find out more about working at, you mentioned Beta.
Yeah,
So find out more about working at Beta Technologies.
yeah.
No need for pay ranges because it's just general,
General.
come find out. However, that posting on the 7 Days website, Beta is hiring machinists,
Yeah.
machining technicians or whatever it is.
Okay.
That requires a pay range. So
Okay.
and then the pay range does require a maximum as currently defined. I think if we're gonna just say shall state the minimum
Yeah,
or the starting wage, we would want to take the pay range out entirely because it would be confusing. And I would defer to your advocates as to
Yeah.
whether that even requires a change in the law.
yeah,
That would not require a change in the law. I can't imagine it would.
Yeah, so the one concern I would have there is
Yeah.
if we put that in the law is that we're not necessarily, you're not affecting a change,
And that,
but you may be raising complications that have unintended consequences.
so we might wanna put some cleanup language about.
There's nothing in the law right now about job advertisements.
Okay,
So what this bill proposes to do, and I leave it to you and your discussion with the advocates to decide if this is a good policy choice.
Mhm.
What it's proposing to do is require job advertisements to say what the employer is intending or expects to pay for that job
Mhm.
when they advertise it. The alternative is to stay with what we currently have, which is to say, starting at or pay commensurate with experience,
Right.
what have you, and that. I can't take a position on which is appropriate, which is gonna accomplish your
Yeah.
goals. But I definitely would advise against putting something in law if your goal is just to maintain what's currently happening.
Awesome.
Because anytime we do that, we, as well intentioned as any law is, we often have unintended consequences. And so I would advise against making changes if you just want to maintain the status quo, because there's nothing you need to change if that's the goal.
right.
So,
Okay,
Are you able to stay with us for a bit?
yes,
okay, I still have a question. We don't need to deal with tipped wage jobs.
so, tip wage jobs, you can satisfy a tipped wage job by saying, pay is, X dollars per hour plus tips.
That, I mean, so I pass the Bagel Cafe every day, which is quite a popular sign on the road that says starting at, I think, $25 an hour, because they include tips. So I don't wanna change.
Well,
Well,
see,
no,
an employer can't guarantee the amount of tips you're getting.
They
But they-
do, right? I mean, they say
So they say, we're gonna pay you $25 an hour. If you don't make that with tips,
we're still
they'll
gonna
make
make
it up.
that,
And that's,
Well, that's an employer's choice, I think, isn't it?
so,
cause they make $1 million an hour. I don't know if you've heard of
Wow.
the Bagel Cafe.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
We wait in line there all the time.
2 pregnancies now.
Anytime we're out that way, but, no, I haven't seen the sign, but, so with that, I think that they could still say pay is, $25 per hour. Trying to think of how they would combine this.
They could still say, well, estimated, because they don't fully know, even though they would like to think that they know. They could still say that $18 an hour plus an estimated X amount in tips to make up the difference. If they
I
were
mean,
actually offering
$18
it.
an hour plus tips
Yeah.
is all you have to say.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure, how they would address it, Bill.
Mhm.
Um. And I'm not sure that that sign would comply because unless they. I'm trying to think here.
I mean, I don't know why, I
so the
don't know why
concern
we
I have,
exempt
and I don't,
commissions, but not tips.
So I
So-
think Carrie may also.
so tips, so we just say that with commissions, you have to state that the job is paid on commission. With any commission job, you still have to guarantee that the employees make minimum wage.
Right,
Commission job that says you're on commission and oh, by the way, you didn't make anything. Unless you're an independent contractor, which there are multi-tiered marketing schemes
Mm.
that do this.
yeah, my
Um,
sister was a Cutco thing.
Right.
There.
So, but unless if you're an employee under both federal and state law, your employer has to guarantee that for every hour you're making minimum wage. So even if you've made nothing in commissions, they have to pay you a base wage.
Right, no, I know, but
Um,
if they wanna say that, I
But
mean,
they'll,
you should point me back to the commission, okay.
it's on page 1.
Yeah, I had wanted to change solely, they're paid solely on a commission basis. That didn't feel necessary. A lot of people, I mean, this is like
Well, I
a
think
wage issue,
But the,
I'm looking at solely.
Yeah, so so you just wanted to say paid on a commission basis shall disclose that fact
there are reasons.
instead of saying solely.
Well,
So you're thinking there's base wage plus commission.
there's base wage plus commission and there's base wage plus tips, and I think this section needs to better address those
Okay.
issues, it's not clear enough.
I mean, you could say that is paid on a commission or tip basis shall disclose that fact.
Government is paid on a commission.
Here.
Solely or partially, I would say, like, it has to include both.
If you just say paid on a commission or tips basis,
Are you sure?
um,
That would
I mean,
Oh.
you could say paid in
In whole or part,
yeah, on a commission or tipped basis, whether in whole or whether,
yeah,
yeah, I'll figure it out.
okay.
Okay,
I don't believe I asked Ashley Bartley, who, as we will recall, reported this bill. I don't believe they discussed tip wage.
They
in the
said they
House.
didn't,
Yeah,
I asked her, she said they didn't talk
yeah,
about it.
no, me too. Yeah.
So this language would make the bagel cafe sign, okay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Although I still wanna do the
they
minimum,
need to disclose that, they need to disclose that there are tips. So. And
you know,
I
as
don't
much as
know,
I love
I'm-
bagel cafe,
yeah, I
The thing
don't
is,
wanna,
they
like,
disclose it's in tips.
I mean, I have
Yeah.
people go by the sign and say they pay more than I get in state government or whatever, which is sadly true. And, I mean, well, people should probably know that because they guarantee tips, but if it's guaranteed that,
So
Megan,
I would really love to, if we could, hear some of the responses from Carrie, who covered some of these concerns.
what I said was I wanted to see it in the language changes.
Yeah, but we haven't fully, for me, tip wages wasn't an issue, it is for you. I felt it was fine the way it was and understood the way it was, and partly I felt that way because of Carrie's memo. Because Carrie took the time to respond to all the questions we
Yeah.
raised in our committee.
And I said back to her and back to you that I would need to see those changes written down because otherwise the language doesn't match this intention or what other states have litigated.
Right, and I think anyway, I'll let Carrie speak for herself, but I don't think we felt we needed to actually call that.
When do
But
you
if-
have my copy?
I did. Oh, actually.
I gave you
got a
my
photo.
copy. You
I
now have
a
both of
photo. Yeah.
Thank you. It's good to have it.
Do you want?
Cause I forget if I had other concerns I raised that. Draft.
Do you want me to send it to you?
No, Wendy and I went through your things we actually thought they had, but anyway, let's,
Okay. For now, I think that's all my concerns until Wendy shows me what I wrote down that time. So we can go to Carrie.
I can show you on my phone.
Okay. I was gonna print it out.
I think you all have the language in front of you now,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Randy also is the almond. And this thing.
These are my birthday plasma. Happy birthday. From the golly and the committee from you guys.
And it's very kind of you to share it.
Well, I wasn't gonna eat these all myself.
They wouldn't taste good. Wow,
Damien, of course, gets one, but why is this not coming up?
pastry, they.
Oh, of course I would.
So I don't know why this isn't
Oh, wow.
opening, but they're here
Yeah,
and
that's true. I
I
forgot.
can't. There we are. There you are.
So, but Carrie can go ahead while we're doing this.
So
Yeah,
We have another.
yeah,
20
because we did
Carrie, would you be kind enough to?
go through all of
Yes.
your.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. For the record, Carrie Brown, I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Commission on Women, and
You're not loud enough, Carrie.
I'm not loud
Molly.
enough. Okay,
Yep, now
how
you're
about
fine.
now? Okay,
Perfect.
great, thanks. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this bill. The Commission on Women is extremely supportive of this. This is one of many, many tools that are available to try to address pay inequity and for women and for people of color. And there are many different ways to address this. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because Representative Bartley did a fantastic job of kind of explaining to you the purpose of this bill and what we hope it might accomplish. I will just note that one of the question you all asked a lot of questions the last time you talked about this, and I tried to address all of those questions in a memo that I sent you, and I'm not going to go through that in great detail because there's a lot of it, but you all have it so you can read it. I will just try to address a few of the things that we suggested in proposed language changes, which we hoped would make things a little bit clearer. So first of all, and Damien went over all of these, but is the removal of the requirement to include a job description. And so there were a lot of questions about if I put a sign up in the window and, under what circumstances do I have to include what information? So getting rid of the job description, which I was not able to find in other states' laws. So, and it's, what we're really getting at here is compensation transparency. So getting rid of the job description makes things easier for employers. It means you don't have to worry about how do I fit a job description on a sign in my window, that kind of thing. So hopefully that would make things a little bit simpler and clearer, and trying to be really clear about a written advertisement versus a verbal one. So if you write something down with a magic marker by hand and stick it in your window, that's written. As well as if you pay money to have it printed in the newspaper, that's written. If you put it on your website, that's written. But if you put it on the radio or television, or you're talking at a job fair, as noted earlier, that is not. So the another change that we suggested was about there were questions about what does good faith mean when it's in the context of setting the maximum, the minimum and the maximum salary. And so we looked at what Colorado has specified. So Colorado has very extensive language in their regulations about how this works exactly. And so we tried to take some of that language and put it into the bill so it would be really clear that, so what this means is that you have to sit down and in good faith think, well, what's the range for this job? And employers, they know that, and they know this is a job that pays $18 to $25 an hour. It does not pay $100 an hour. So I know that's what I have in my budget. That's what I expect to pay. So that's your good faith effort to say, this is what I believe the job will pay.
Can I pause, Carrie?
Yeah.
I just read an article about how Walmart is paying its general managers at its stores upwards of $200,000 to $250,000 because of the high level job they're doing. With the labor market the way it is, I don't know that people just know you're capping out at $25. Managers are, I pay the lady who helps me clean $75 an hour, you know, like,
Yeah, but most of us don't. And
Well,
I think a
it's really
range,
hard to find folks, so.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah, and that's exactly why we propose this additional language that says
Yeah.
if there's something beyond the employer's control, like it turns out, like you thought 18 to 25 was reasonable, turns out everybody walking through the doors, like I made 30, I made 40 at my last position doing exactly the same thing, then you realize, okay, the market conditions are such that we're going to need to pay more. So it does allow for that flexibility. So it does allow someone who comes along and says, well, I'm applying for this lower level job, but I actually have 25 years of experience and I'll be able to bring X, Y, and Z to
I actually
to
worry
you.
that if you do an upper range, you're stunting their potential. You're saying, wow, we got away with this range, like up to $25, and this talented person applied. I mean, why would we do that to people?
Well, the whole point of this is
I
to
mean-
provide transparency and clarity about what the compensation actually is. So if you're willing to pay, if you know that you're willing to pay as much as you possibly need to hire somebody, then you can put that in your range. You know, if this is a job that typically pays $18 an hour, but you know that, well, if I have to pay 100, I will, put it in your range if that's honestly true. But for most jobs, that's not honestly true. Employers have a sense of what they're willing to pay. And if we only include the minimum, then it's not letting people know what the range actually is. And so if you want to go in and negotiate, you don't actually have the information. So leaving out the maximum would really take away the entire point of this proposal. And I mean, honestly, I think there would be no reason to make any change at all.
right. I agree. For me, it's an empowering piece, particularly for women. Women are still only paid 93% of what men are paid, as we know. Women tend to come into a job interview not asking for the maximum, negotiating from their last pay job, what they're paid from the last job, and not understanding what the possibilities might be. And I think it's very empowering to have a maximum.
We came in looking at research that said helping give people a ballpark is helpful, but I haven't seen any data that says the upper range is a helpful tool for people.
I think you're underselling women.
I don't think, I think we're empowering women.
I think we're,
Tend to not.
women in my generation, yeah, because we hadn't worked before. My daughters, not so much, and my grandchildren, it's another whole world. They're not, trust me, my daughter-in-law has a very good job and she is not that Microsoft short.
Well, I would say that 8
Good.
states have passed this to strong effect. Harry has a lot of studies in here that support the recommendations in this bill. 15 states like us are currently actively looking at this because if we're interested in pay equity, this is another, as Harry said, another key tool that we can use. It's not working, as you know, we can get rid of it. But I would encourage us to give as many tools as we can to a part of our population, women, BIPOC, people of color, who who need as much empowering in many of these interviews and in many of these job searches as possible. So
The latest statistics I heard, you gotta look at the enrollment numbers. It's women are far outnumbering men. I believe UVM has some really interesting enrollment
Oh, yeah, it's like
numbers.
60-40.
Women are outnumbering
Oh, yeah.
men.
That's-
It's men who are now.
Women still get paid less. But I
women
just-
are still paid.
Yeah, can you
Yeah.
point out, Carrie, in your memo where the upper range is so critical?
Sure.
This is.
Sure.
Two memos.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, so there's on page 2, there starts a section with evidence that the proposed law would help with pay disparity. And there are numerous studies there, lots of research showing that when applicants are clearly informed about the context for the negotiations, including the typical pay for the position, then we see gender differences in negotiation outcomes are lower, they're smaller. And that actually has shown up in research. And so transparency means how much the job pays. What the job starts at is only part of the information. What the job
Okay.
tops out at is the other part of the information.
It says 60,000 to 290,000. like in California, over $150,000 is like New York City, just a pretty reasonable salary. Like most people would look at a job in California at 60,000 and say like, I'm living in a tent, you know, so.
That's not the two she's.
That's the
referring
first
to.
memo, not
She,
Okay, but I just wanna point out a memo that I think she wrote,
it's the
right?
second memo, but she was.
Can I
referring-
just
Yeah.
look, this was considered bad faith, is what you said, to say $60,000 to $290,000. That concerns me, because I would hope people don't, you know, say, like, that's bad faith to go all the way up to that. If you move one step up the ladder in a job at Silicon Valley, you should absolutely be making $290,000.
So the question is, was that actually bad faith or not? That's an example that was posed because it sort of seems to your average person common sense that it's unlikely that a starting salary for a job might be 60 or it might be $290,000. It's possible. If that's actually true, then it's a good faith representation of how much money the job pays. If that's actually true, then okay, go ahead. Now, I mean, I'm dubious, honestly. I think that that what Netflix was doing in those cases, from what I've read, is that they were lumping like all of one type of job, like, you know, all the jobs that had to do with customer service or something like that, including the very lowest level and the people who'd been there for 15 years, and calling that the range. That's not necessarily the range for someone who's starting. But
That
if it
seems-
really is, great.
Like, I mean, that seems helpful to know that. Like, if I know that if you walk into the bagel cafe and you're starting at $25 an hour, they are gonna say that's the starting. And like, you could become a manager in a place that needs really good management.
No,
and
no, no,
make
but
way-
I'm sorry.
Oh,
We're
wait,
talking
Senator,
about
yeah.
promotion, about advancing. So yes, you might start at that lowest level and then you get promoted and you become a manager and you work your way up and you earn more and more and more. But that's not what the job advertisement is for. The job advertisement is for the starting salary. And the
Because this is,
starting job.
right,
Okay, so the challenge of I think the benefit of this would be to anyone who is looking for a job in the private sector. The
Mhm.
public sector, the pay ranges and the pay, it's already there, right? But that's
this is.
well, it generally is, you know, you can find the pay range. Well, it should be.
Find my salary. I'm gonna
Yeah.
line along
Well,
with
yeah,
the other-
that's
All the
So,
decent
but in the
employees.
private sector, it's private, right?
And they get paid
And-
higher.
They often get paid higher, but their benefits are lower, so, I mean, there's choices that people can make, and this helps someone.
All town employees, their
But-
salaries. and
Yeah,
their-
wait,
Right, and it's just public record, because someone has to
Being
approve
paid with
it.
public money.
So what you're
Right,
saying
no,
then
well,
is
no,
if someone
I'm not
like is
saying-
now hiring,
But I
starting at
haven't-
$25 an hour, they're not out of compliance with the law because they didn't name a specific job.
Okay, no, what I'm trying to say is that that just overall, I see the purpose of this as more than just specific classes of employees. I see it helpful to everyone who is looking for a job, or even people in the organization. Because once you're in an organization, you don't share your salary. That's verboten generally in organizations. You don't talk about salary. So this is a way to understand where other people are being paid, and it's helpful to the employees, and it empowers the employees to make sure that they're being
So
fairly
I'll
paid.
start by saying I think we have a really big problem with how we pay our legislative staff. I mean, the
Oh, I
public
do
sector
too.
has
Well, but I do
problems
too.
with how that works.
Oh, yeah.
But what I hear you saying, I mean, Netflix could say jobs in consumer products, $60,000 to $290,000.
Okay,
That would be pretty accurate
No,
because
but-
they're hiring everyone in that department.
but that's not a specific job.
So that there's, this bill doesn't apply to that.
No, this applies to a specific job.
Okay.
I believe, Damien, is that
Yes.
correct?
It applies to a specific job, not
So,
a range of jobs.
It's not a range of jobs, it's a
Okay.
specific job, so it's a forklift operator, or it is a manager, or
Okay.
it is a whatever it
You
is.
think
it's a
that's really
specific
clear?
job.
So if Bagel Cafe says now hiring starting at $25 an hour, their sign could remain the same because you could walk in and become a
It's not a
manager and
specific
get paid
job.
more.
Yeah, or they can
Right.
advertise, not in a job advertisement, but they can make their ranges public if they want. Or to their employees.
But can they also just simply define jobs with a lot more granularity? Forklift operator 1, forklift operator 2, forklift operator 3.
If they want to,
And you may start at above the starting range in the event that you are deemed to have qualifications sufficient to allow that. And if you did that, would it be any different than it is right now?
I think it would be different
Yes.
because they would be required to post the salary.
Well, if you have a salary for each one of these graded jobs and the ability to define who is qualified to fill those jobs.
Well, that's part of what
Sure.
the whole
I
process.
mean,
Well, I mean, what I'm saying
complicated.
is that is the rationale that many employers use to decide how they charge, how they hire someone to do a job, because they believe the person they're hiring is better suited, better able, more articulate, more
Whatever.
have more dexterity and so on.
But
They make decisions that this person, I think, is going to be a better fit for the job because they are better quote qualified, and qualified is a very judgmental
Yes,
kind of issue. And so what I'm asking is whether or not, when you decide to hire someone at the bagel barn or whatever it is, you're looking at customer service skills, you're looking at experience in doing that, you're looking at all kinds of things, and you make a judgment, I want to pay that person $2 more than the other person.
Right.
Was,
Yes.
and
But that,
is that going to change anything?
yes, I think it will change because people applying for that job know what the range is and know that if they have qualifications and if they interview well, that they may get paid more within that range.
Right,
But
all right,
this is,
so take that particular job that they typically start at, let's say the lower salary might be, say, $20 an hour, and if you're able to say the starting range is from $20 to $35 an hour. How helpful is that going to be to applicants?
I think it's very helpful because I think, depending on what the experience that you bring to that interview and your skills and talents, you may end up.
But your judgment of what the skills that you bring are different than the employer's judgment about the
But
value of
the
the skills
employer
that
is
you
the
have.
final judge. The employer hires, but the applicant at least knows what the range is. And
Well,
that's
but
all we're asking.
the range is wide enough that it is so
It doesn't have to
judgmental.
be. It's up to the employer. If the
Well,
employer
I-
has a
as I say,
range.
I just wonder if this is just another requirement that we are adding to business that actually is not necessarily meaningful.
I think this,
Because the judgment can be so broad in
That-
terms of how it's
but
applied.
Randy, that's what the job description is about, and that's what the job interview is about. The employer makes the decision about who to hire. All they're doing is enabling and empowering a range of people to feel like they can apply or that they would like to
Or
apply.
is this basically window dressing that makes it appear as such, but actually doesn't change anything at all?
Carrie, could you address the change? And
Yeah,
how it's affected the states and or the populations where this is applied?
Sure. So it is true that many employers nowadays are including pay ranges in their job advertisements because it works better for recruiting people. But not everybody does that. And so the idea of this bill is to provide that information across the board consistently for all jobs to everybody so that they know what the range is that's available. And, it's for a lot of employers, this isn't really going to make any difference because this is what they're doing already. But there are plenty of employers who are not doing it. And so this would increase that transparency and consistency to all the other people who are looking for jobs, which gives them more of a level playing field and equal footing when they're trying to negotiate or when they're trying to apply for the job.
Okay, we do have to move on. Yeah, Senator Cummings.
Is there anything in this that would forbid an employer, they publish a range, but an individual comes in? You got level 1, level 2, overqualified for the job. I'd really like to have this person for level 2. I don't have an opening, but so-and-so's 64 and a half years old. I want to hold on to this person, so when I've got an opening in 2, so can I offer her?
Yeah.
And
That's criminal.
So
I
so that is,
offer her-
that's in the proposed language change that's before you in the latest draft. That does allow for if circumstances really change, something beyond the employer's control, like somebody comes in with just fantastic qualifications and, or something about the labor market has shifted, that yes, it is possible for the employer to offer, to pay outside of that range.
And is it possible to offer less?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay. The employer isn't completely boxed in.
Right.
no, the
Yeah.
key factor in the bill is that it's in good faith at the time you make the job posting.
Okay.
Understanding that, so the example that we gave in the House was that if you're in one of the mechanical trades, say you posted for a journeyman electrician for your company. There are no journeymen available, but you get someone who says, I'm looking to start an apprenticeship, starting my courses. Can I work for you? You could say yes, but I can't hire you for the journeyman's rate. I'll hire you at an apprentice's rate, and if you work out, we'll bring you on as a journeyman, and at least now I've got some help on the wires when I run it. So it's,
I'm just thinking, we're in a labor shortage. And so we keep talking about, I need someone to wash dishes. This person comes through the door and I'm not sure they have the ability to do
They
this.
need a lot of training.
But I'll hire you at a lesser rate, and if you turn out that you do learn how to wash dishes and you don't get in trouble with the health department, I'll raise you up.
yeah, so what the clarifying language says is nothing prevents an employer from hiring an employee for more or less range. Based on circumstances outside of the employer's control, such as the applicant's qualifications or labor market factors. So for example, someone comes in and say, I'd love to work for you, but your competitor just offered me $10,000 more.
They can always respond.
So we do have to move on. I'm gonna summarize that. We,
We're not ready.
whoever's working on this bill, I would look at good faith and the range. Because I just think the example wasn't a great example of what good faith means. The work site supervisor issue. You can look more at tipped wages, and the last piece I had in my notes was enforcement and education.
Enforcement is by complaint. I mean, it is complaint driven like much of our enforcement
The
is.
same
There's
as
something-
all other discrimination laws in Vermont, it's in
Yeah.
the Fair Employment Practices Act.
Mhm.
So enforcement is either by a complaint to the Attorney General or by
Okay.
filing a private lawsuit in
Okay.
Superior Court.
Okay,
So
You've already left out bottom level women because very few of us are.
Right.
Have that much ego to complain to the Attorney General. If I'm working in Silicon Valley, I'm like,
right,
so I'm washing dishes or,
yeah,
bags and bases. I'm probably not gonna complain,
So I would encourage
male
us,
or female.
so I would encourage us before we meet again, to read Carrie's full first memo, which responded to a lot of these questions, both the out-of-state issue and concern about remote work or the supervisor, Vermont supervisor, and it also addressed tip wage. It had a lot of studies in it. I would encourage people to look at this. Carrie took a lot of time to do this for us, and I'm really grateful because we have not had a lot of time to do it. So it's so great that you were able to do this for us. Thank you.
okay, so we'll see some of those issues worked out for the next draft next week. Senator Harrison.
Did you miss?
Yes. Okay, great. So, and you can schedule another probably half hour with Macaulay for now. It'll probably extend to 45 minutes, but
Okay.
we're getting our last pills out as fast as we can do that. We have to move on to alcohol beverages.
Oh, so Damien stays right here.
I know, I think you're, you
Carrie, maybe we could chat
get a
later
break for cannabis.
today.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Oh, we're really grateful. All right. And I don't know who's this. Oh, this is mine. This
Yeah,
is
that's
867. Okay.
867. 5309.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm old enough to remember from the infomercials about buying oldies on CDs.
wow.
Great.
So
that means
I'm like,
About the time.
I have generation.
2 rule suspensions taken out.
My sister actually
And they're
knew the
here.
person who said that phone number thing.
I could.
Yeah.
Oh, why was
In
it-
California.
It's taken off the notice calendar. and-
Okay.
Okay,
We would be in the chamber.
Oh, please, be able to change.
Are they?
They're supposed to be coming here first.
Well, it would be great, but he hasn't responded to my email
Oh,
and I
okay.
will look and see, because they were traveling.
Okay, so 867,
No, they came last night.
that's right, yeah.
all right. So I just want to let the committee know I'm with you for a while yet, but I will have to go to the House floor for Prop 3
Okay,
at some point this morning. So
okay, that's our prop.
yes. So it is up on the House floor.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll be
I get
there for that.
And there's no language changes to it.
No, they can't change it.
Oh, I couldn't
This
remember
is-
if they get to change it, then it
No,
gets
this is
fun.
one of those great things where the Senate gets to write the language and then the House just has to.
I didn't know we had that sole power.
You
Oh,
do.
yeah, remember with the board, with our freedom,
I was like, what a lay person at that time.
oh, yeah.
I wasn't-
Yeah, no, they don't get to touch it,
Grasp.
it's hard
Yeah.
for the House to touch it,
Yes, you have all of the power.
but let me just see what's on it.
So we need to get it right.
Watch,
Yeah.
so that we can't do it.
I mean, they did not vote for it, so there's
So-
that, but
So the first change is on page 4.
this is just a technical change.
Okay.
The that reader assistance heading actually was in the wrong place, so I just moved it. But that's all it is, that those words just appeared in front of the wrong section. And that I think was just a typographical error that slipped through editing, so. That brings us to, if you look on page 5, that's where the real substance of the bill changes are. Section 9 changes the retail master license to a report due back in December. And it requires the commissioner to report back to this committee and your House counterparts regarding the creation of the license. And I've just repeated the language about the parent corporation of retail dealers and manufacturers that have merged. And it would permit the license holder to provide unified payroll and administrative services. And then at the end, it requires them to include a proposal for legislation and an appropriate license fee. So presumably, the commissioner will send back some version of what was in the bill. And then a license fee that's finalized. And that's on page 6, where you have the requirement to include the license fee.
Okay.
Section 10.
Excuse me one
Oh, yes,
second.
ma'am.
Just does the license fee cover their costs?
That is up to them. So the department is going to have to come back with a proposal for a license fee and explain why they think that's appropriate.
Senator Cummings can explain, would
The
they normally?
philosophy of these covering costs more if you'd like, I mean.
I just
like a
think
big
it's a
question in
good
the
idea,
legislature.
generally.
Fees generally cover the cost.
I mean,
sir.
Wouldn't that be our goal? Or
Yes,
can we say that's our goal in this?
well, we don't know what,
Or,
We don't have to
or
say
at
that
least,
it's our
we don't
goal.
have to say that it's our goal, but can
Yeah.
we ask for that information, the cost of administering it? Because what I heard was
what
they're
they're going to have to give us, in order, if they're coming back with something over $1,000 fee. So in order to get that fee approved by probably my committee and Ways and Means, they're going to have to say, this is what it costs, that's why we're asking for $3,000.
It's kind of an
Okay,
unspoken
yeah.
thing that the finance committees look at. Because they might say, well, they're giving us money from this fee and put that all together and we make up our whole budget.
Right. No, that makes
Or that-
sense.
yeah.
It's just helpful to document the cost so that we can make that decision.
You and Representative Carolyn Brannigan should get together and have this conversation, because she's like called the fee queen. Because she looks really
She did the
deeply
fee
at
bill
trying
every
to
year.
look at this, and we haven't had a fee bill in government recently that reminds us that they're supposed to be tied together.
Right.
Because that hasn't been this administration's philosophy necessarily.
Okay.
So,
Well, my opinion.
Yeah.
Can I say my opinion really quick?
Sure.
Is that the fees should cover the cost,
Yes.
but in covering the cost, you can also look at other non-monetary benefits.
Right, and that's what finance does.
Okay,
Yeah, they're gonna have to come to us and say, this is our recommendation, this is why.
okay.
In fact, now that it says, well, the fee would have gone to finance anyway. But I think even now that there's the underlying fee and the proposed fee, finance will have this very discussion.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Good.
So the next section, section 10, is the creation of a direct consumer sales investigator position within the Department of Liquor and Lottery. They would enforce and investigate potential violations of Vermont laws relating to direct consumer sales and delivery of alcohol and tobacco products. And then we've referenced the direct consumer sales provisions under Title VII relating to those products.
So they said they don't want the position and they're using AI. Senator Cummings found us another path for our
Okay,
other concern in this bill. I'm gonna propose taking this out because we don't have a revenue source for this.
okay. Sounds
And I'm
good.
glad they can still do the operations. Perform this,
Yes,
cause it's really
they
important.
could come back and tell us how the AI goes.
All right. So that will come out in the next draft.
It's gonna be our AI versus their AI.
Yeah,
How do you
and-
that?
That is it for your changes.
okay, and then the effective date for the report.
The effective date. Yep, and I just have to take out the effective date for the investigator position. So, yeah, but taking that position out, takes us through the rest of the changes in the bill.
Do you wanna work on those changes right now?
I'm doing it. as we
Thank you,
speak.
okay. So Rob,
Talk also about the issue of cannabis operations and
Yeah.
retail operations.
mhm.
I think we have Bryn Hare from Cannabis
wonderful.
Control Board here. So those were the changes we did yesterday, yes.
Mhm.
We had a question about the special venue serving permits and
Mhm.
how that would affect cannabis retailers.
Mhm.
And we have Bryn Hare from the Cannabis Control Board and maybe the chair of the board as well, I'm not sure.
I don't see that person.
Oh, I don't see Bryn. Yeah,
It's
no.
just Bryn's right behind you.
Hi, Bryn.
Hold on. I'm right behind you.
I thought you were on Zoom.
So do you wanna switch seats for this conversation? Is that?
Well, we do, what I have to say is very quick, so if you'd like for Damien to stay on the
I
chair.
mean, if that helps you type, then by
It's
all
fine,
means.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so for the record, Bryn Hare, Executive Director of the Cannabis Control Board, and it's my understanding that there's not a definition of retail establishments in Title VII that's directly applicable to this language.
Mhm.
And given that a retail cannabis establishment is a retail establishment like any other, I don't see why it would not apply to a
Mhm.
retail cannabis establishment. So if you don't want it to, then you should explicitly carve out retail cannabis establishment.
And just to be clear, no one is consuming cannabis at retail cannabis
That
establishments.
is expressly prohibited by both statute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right,
But this is about liquor and this is about wine and.
right, but it's not like people would be allowed to like sample cannabis and
Correct.
sample wine in the same event.
That's correct.
That wouldn't happen, yeah.
Or at the same time.
Or at the same time, same
At
event.
least not in a retail establishment,
At home.
at your parent.
But you're consuming the alcohol on premise, you're not taking alcohol away, so you can sip your alcohol, buy your cannabis,
Exactly.
go home. Which I just wanna point out, we allow alcohol to have that power, right? You can sip alcohol and then drive home.
Okay, but
Yeah,
Which is.
we've been dealing with alcohol. And we deal with it because it is an intoxicant, it has health issues, it has public safety if you're driving around.
mhm,
We now have legalized another form of intoxicant that's all to your body, okay? And I think what we're trying to do is figure out how you regulate them together. I don't know what the result is of consuming together, but I'm assuming it's not good. At least if you're getting into a motor vehicle depending on how much, if you're walking, but we don't know how to do that. And I'm getting a little nervous about public tasting events and, I mean, I could get a serious bug on at the farmer's market. And we aren't, if we start allowing cannabis tasting there,
This is just about why.
maybe I'll buy a lot more tomatoes, I don't know.
Or pastries.
So a special event could be like a grand opening or a special party, like there. I don't know, like so I guess I take the pulse of the committee, if you want to specifically carve cannabis retail establishments out of this, I feel like we just recreating all the things we always do that we're like, well, make them come back 10 years later and undo that, but yeah,
But I'm thinking about them as like an alcohol like a liquor store.
yeah.
I mean, we generally don't want people drinking in liquor
You
stores.
cannot drink it.
Right,
That's true.
so to me, this seems similar to that situation.
Can you can have tastings in liquor stores, can you not?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Special
Just-
events permit,
If you can get a special events permit for a liquor store.
like the distributors can do it.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
At
right.
the Woodstock Farmers Market, they often
No,
have
no,
beer.
but in
person.
an 802 outlet.
Yeah,
I would have to.
I
Oh, and then-
I think we
I've
really
never seen
don't
a
do
state
that, yeah.
Store,
Yeah,
which is
that's
what
true.
they are,
That's
state
true.
licensed store.
Yeah,
Have a tasting event.
you're right. I haven't
So,
seen it.
I might wanna,
Well,
why don't you
generally,
try this more expensive
Yeah.
thing, it
Mhm.
tastes better. I would look at cannabis
Not allowed.
stores,
So
Yeah,
we've
consumers
got more
can-
experience.
you can do educational tastings for the owners or.
Oh,
entities,
okay,
But not for
okay.
consumers.
Okay, so that's a good, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
So
We did allow tastings for restaurant staff. A couple of years ago. Because you wanna go into a restaurant and convince them that you really have good wine and they should carry your wine or something.
right, I thought they could do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's fine the way it is. I think this is about wine and liquor special events is not about serving cannabis. It's just whether cannabis is considered a retail establishment. It is, and I'm fine going forward. If they have a special event and want to serve wine, they are not allowed to serve cannabis. So I think we have answered the question, and I think it would be until we have a problem that, I mean, we already have a problem. The genie's out of the bottle on wine and liquor served at special events. Special, yes. So I would leave it where it is with this change to retail establishment and see how it looks. We have a sunset on it already. We can look at it in 2 years, which is when I think the sunset expires. Is that right, Damien?
Yes,
So your vote is to leave it.
Yeah.
where
And
are we? I mean,
We're on page 1, I think.
page one,
Yeah, whether to include retail establishment and whether that, my question was.
we're gonna lose Damien soon, right?
uh,
Or it's not.
so
worth it.
I've got Ron keeping an eye on
Oh,
the
right,
floor
okay.
to warn me if
There are a lot of announcements.
it's
yeah,
retail,
That's true, I always
Sorry,
forget.
get started.
I always forget, but it's
okay,
Well, they have time.
retail,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
we had a request last year from a jewelry store that said if you were buying a diamond
It's very
ring,
legal thing.
we'd like to be able to serve champagne. Of course, depending on how much champagne now you can serve me, I might buy a bigger diamond ring,
I don't think I got you.
but and I think rather than, because we did art galleries, then we did bookstores. I think the effort here is to say, if the wedding gown place wants to serve champagne for a show. But if we are
They are limited to 12 permits per year,
12 per year,
so you're.
each establishment, so
you need
once
to
a
pull the
month,
permit in advance, so you would need to know that the diamond ring is gonna be bought on that day and then pull the permit in advance.
Oh, that was why.
You're more likely to pull the permit for like a promotional sale.
Like a
well,
trunk
what I'm
show,
thinking
some
is that
Valentine's.
you could, as local clothing store, you could have an event once a month, pretty much, that's You could
That's what
do that.
this would allow.
Yeah.
So every second Saturday, I could go have my champagne and they could show me the new dresses or the new jewelry.
Yep. You
Uh,
can serve for up to 6 hours once a month or 12 times a year.
It's limited.
If
So,
that's not that limited, and I have a just somewhat reservation about serving alcohol. At the same time, you're trying to encourage people to buy probably expensive things, because we serve champagne, buy cheap things. Walmart probably won't do this. You have 2 glasses of champagne, depending on how often you consume 2 things. Your judgment starts to get a little, you might say, oh yeah, I could afford an extra $20 a month to buy this thing I really like. I find that concerning, and if we are not allowing cannabis in this, or could cannabis have wine tastings?
That's kind of the question.
Yeah,
Although if you're questioning all retail establishments, the whole question is on the table,
The
so.
whole, what my question was, which got this started, was, is a cannabis store would be included in this? And the answer is yes, they would be, and they are, right? But I would say, and, we trained at a special event, the people who are serving the liquor or wine have to be trained, they have to have taken this training.
They're liable as the last server.
They're liable as the last server, and quite honestly, every auction we know has lots of wine or whatever beforehand. I mean, it is, we allow this in situations that aren't, you know.
Did you ever used to go to the Alberg auction? It was my favorite
I haven't been to
auction.
Allstate, I've been to Bradford a lot.
Oh,
But I mean, event
You could
auctions,
mostly get a
not just-
PBR and bid on like drawers full of doilies and handguns.
I mean, they're not selling beer, you get
Yeah.
a cup of really bad coffee.
They do, so this is just for wine, beer and spirits, this is not for cannabis. However, cannabis is a retail establishment.
However, I just have a concern. You aren't over serving me, but you serve me 2 glasses of champagne. They're not doing it because they're happy with me, they're doing it because they want me to buy something.
Just like urgency when you click on shopping. I mean, there are a lot of tools to lubricate a sale. That is
Say
true.
urgency, it's only on for
Oh,
3
like
minutes.
this sale is on, yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes, the
Act
last
now
one.
and lose
Yeah,
it
yeah.
forever.
Right.
Of course, it'll be urgent, 3 cents cheaper tomorrow. But that's not impairing my judgment.
Right. Enough said
Maybe
there,
there's-
yeah,
yeah.
just on cannabis being retail, that's interesting to me, because we don't call liquor stores retail, right?
We do call them retail
Yeah,
outlets, the
they're
retail.
retail.
So
But they-
then how are they excluded from this?
you're not, they can pull the permit.
So the 802 stores could do alcohol with this?
I believe they could. Because
Okay.
this opens up, so
I
current
think
rules
Remember the definition of
are,
retail, it was like.
yeah, so the
Okay,
current.
so- I think we
Excuse me,
need-
can we pause for
Sorry,
a second?
yes.
So the current law says bookstore. An
Right.
802 liquor store is not a bookstore.
Okay,
This says retail store. An 802 store is a retail store. Oftentimes our 802 stores are also a general store
right,
or something else.
Right.
And so this permits them to pull a special event permit to serve by the glass, not for charge, for up to 6 hours, 12 times a year. The same could be said for the clothing store, for the record store, for the sporting goods store, for the bookstore, and for the cannabis retailer, for the hardware store. even.
Right.
So this would open it up to all retailers. But under current law, our 802 stores cannot pull that. There is a sampling event license, which is a little bit different. And then there are the promotional tastings that manufacturers can do with with people who sell it. Where the staff, it's after hours, the staff are there to taste, but they're not then selling the product and turning around and doing that.
Okay.
So they're,
But am I wrong? This came forward, I think because the spirits manufacturers wanted to do special events at their retail outlet as well.
I don't believe that's the case.
Oh, okay, so
I
this
think
was
Aaron-
both stores then.
I have not read.
No, this is because we were
Okay.
getting nickel and dime on every retail establishment that wanted to.
That
be
wants
exempt.
to, oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
Aaron Seagrass, president of Vermont Retail and Grocers Association. The request from the distillers was a separate.
That's a separate thing, okay.
This is retailers. I'll be honest, there are probably some retailers around the state that are already doing this.
Okay,
So we want to make sure that all retailers, not just bookstores or art galleries, have access to that. But it
Yeah.
also provides some guidance and support and
right,
training.
right. Senator Harrison.
I really think that we should exempt 802 stores and cannabis stores. from it.
Okay,
It just doesn't make sense. to me.
okay, so that's the proposal on the table.
I mean, they are very different.
Yeah.
It would be a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
If we do it even on a test, it'll be very hard to
Mhm.
dial it back.
Well, this is sunset, so we-
Right, but
You don't have.
it would be very hard to
So-
not.
it's worth noting that an 802 retailer can already pull 4 sampling event permits per year
For the public.
for the general public to serve for a period of up to 4 days.
Well, that's interesting.
Like
I
a
didn't know
test
that.
product or.
Yeah.
Exactly, so
or a new product.
we just got in, this new line of products from whatever brewer or vineyard or whatever. We're doing a sampling event over the long weekend here to try to promote this product,
So an 802 store can do that.
yes.
Yeah.
And a grocery
So that's
store.
different than what you were saying about the employees.
Anyone who sells alcohol products could pull a sampling event permit for a period of up to 4 days, 4 times a year. This is different. This is a special event. We're serving wine, we're serving beer, we're serving ready to drink. Pre-mixed beverages, whatever it is. It, RTDs, not straight spirits,
No, it's
Um,
mixed, but.
yes. So, but
But if they are trained, and they have to understand their liability. So sorry, let Damien finish. it.
so, right, the policy question for you is whether you think it's okay to do this special serving permit. So I'm sorry, it's malt or vinous, it's not RTDs. That was a misstatement.
Okay, good,
Excuse me on that. And this is what happens when Tucker goes away.
that helps. Right, he's just in a different.
So it's malt or vinous, or both can be served by the glass to the public for a period of up to 6 hours.
Even Tucker makes mistakes on this stuff because it's very complicated. There are a
So-
lot of pieces.
It's malt or vinous that can be served to the public for up to 6 hours.
As opposed to the 4 hours, 4 times a year. Or in
So,
addition to the 4 hours. 4 times a year.
No, so the sampling event permits is open to the public. You can serve one or more of the following: malt, vinous, RTD, fortified wine, or spirits. And then attendees are required to pay an entry fee of at least $5. There are specific limits on the size of the samples that you can serve. And then you have to purchase the products ahead of time, pay all taxes on them. And then you can pull up to 4 sampling event permits per year, and the permit is valid for not more than 4 consecutive days. So it can be open and closed 4 days in a row. We are serving samples of this product that we sell. So an 802 spirits retailer could say, we have the new Whistle Pig whiskey in. We are serving samples of it. Tickets to the event are $25 each, must be 21 years of age. And then we'll serve,
Separate section.
and then we serve,
Off.
right, we serve 2 samples, and the spirit samples can be not more than 1 ounce. and a maximum of 5 ounces served to a patron at the event. So you are limited, there are specific limits on that in the way there are. The special venue is beer or wine by the glass, but without specific limits. Instead, your servers are looking to judge intoxication and reasonable consumption. And should be trained with the basic server training of this person had 3 drinks. I'm cutting them off because we don't want to be liable.
And with the liability that hangs over the store at the retail
Can
establishment.
I pause? I saw Senator Cummings has a question. I want to make sure that we don't have any other outstanding issues because we can spend 10 more minutes on this conversation and then
I'll
vote.
just finish one.
Well, that's why I went through the whole bill.
Yeah.
So, we can have this conversation for another 10 minutes, but I want to make sure any other issues are.
Well, good, so you guys, when I was.
Yes,
with the
we went through the
Taiwan
whole bill. It's
crowd,
not that
you-
much. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Okay,
there-
so our study works.
I think everything
report
works.
coming back,
We
okay,
can't
great,
rehash
perfect.
everything. So.
Good.
Yeah, the department reviewed that language last night. I'm sorry, I should have
Okay.
mentioned.
Thank you.
Charles emailed me last night to say the department has suggested changes.
Okay, so we can spend another 8 minutes on this conversation.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, that means that's incorporated in here, their changes.
They had
Don't
no
have it.
changes.
Oh, they had no, okay.
So I worked with him yesterday afternoon
Great.
on the language and they.
On the retail masters,
Okay.
like,
Yeah, the study. Yep.
So I just want to restate the question I think we're considering, which is taking, so 802 outlets have a different sampling permit they can pull.
Yeah, but I just heard they also can do the special.
But I'm saying
So
if we want to exempt them and cannabis retailers, they could still have their 44 time of year sampling permit without being able to do this. Right?
Okay,
Right, so yes, what we could say is, so we say, as used in this section, art gallery, et cetera, and then we could say a new sentence at the end that says, as used in this section, retail establishment shall not include a Vermont agency liquor store or a cannabis retailer as defined pursuant to 7 VSA, and I forget the exact site.
Okay.
And then that is a dispensary.
okay, thank you.
They're saying, yeah. Cannabis retailer is what we say in the statute.
So do people want to do that?
I would like to.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Senator Brock, you have been quiet, or you said that. I'm infringing on your. You're also. Are you okay with exempting those two
Yeah.
from the retail establishments?
I am.
I'm neutral. Cause
Okay.
I think that we have enough controls, but I'm happy to do this. I'm really happy only to do this because it has a sunset. So, and we can review it. So I'm happy to agree with the sunset that will force us to sort of look at it, re-examine how it's going.
Okay, so you're gonna write in the language that exempts those two.
I will, and I will send it for ASAP edit. But I can pull it up on the screen so you can see it.
Great, are people
Vote.
comfortable looking at the language and voting pending editing?
I'm not
Yes.
comfortable with this.
Oh, okay,
Okay, I'm comfortable with everything. We seem to not be talking about alcoholism is a major health issue. It's a major public safety issue. We spend lots of money on rehab, getting people out of alcohol. And now we are setting up a system where any retail store can serve alcohol for up to 6 hours once a month. And you're combining alcohol with purchasing decisions.
Mhm.
They're not doing,
you might not, it might be a fundraiser that they're throwing for a flood impacted.
Yeah, that's where I see
community.
that.
That's like they
but
do a lot of community
it's not
stuff.
limited to that.
Yes.
And I just see this as a major expansion, and I drink as much as anybody. I'm not at the alcohol. I just
Mhm.
think that making drinking alcohol part of the retail experience is not a particularly safe decision.
Okay. Okay, so you aren't comfortable with the whole bill?
With that section, Phil.
Okay,
But that's my,
Okay,
that's my.
are you nodding because,
So I'm nodding that I think there's a point there, but, I'm inclined to allow it because of the other, instances in which we've allowed it. We
Right.
know that where things are done in, stuff is very much like they're done at farmers, other things, and we're talking about special events, here. We're not talking about, recurring activity.
Right, I'm a little concerned about 1 ounce here, but there's 12 folks over there selling not just wine and beer, but gin and whiskey.
so we
and-
have accepted them? We
No, but I mean, we're
Oh, at the
already
farmer's market.
doing that at the
Okay.
farmer's market.
Yeah.
If you have a large amount of alcohol being served, farmers markets are supposed to be farmers selling tomatoes.
Yeah.
And I'm just not that comfortable with the amount of alcohol that we're putting out there for free for people. I don't know who's forcing the show me your ID.
So
That's just my
that's a good
personal.
question for the farmer's market ones. Damien, do you have I know you're drafting, so it's.
They're not a retail establishment.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
at farmers markets, because I think, Ann's
Yeah,
point
it-
is well taken. Alcoholism costs this state hundreds of millions of dollars. I know, I have a son who's a state's attorney. The amount of court time that alcohol takes up is huge. And domestic violence issues, all the issues that stem from it, the driving, it's huge and it eats up a ton of our state resources. Hundreds of millions of dollars. I completely appreciate what Ann is saying. On the other hand, and so I think your concern is what is in current law at the moment about what is enabled with farmers markets. And Damien, I guess the question I think I hear Ann asking is, how are the farmers, distillers, people who are at farmers markets, how are we enforcing their serving responsibly their samples?
Well, that's,
I texted Charles.
yeah, I mean, that's.
That's what
I think they're doing the best they can. My concern is, we've done that. I voted for it.
Yeah,
I never envisioned the number that would show up at any farmer's market. We are now further expanding that to retail sales. So I can come down here and do a couple samples and I can walk up to the local dress store that's going to do a show of our new fashions today.
Mhm,
And I can have a couple of glasses of champagne.
mhm.
I'm just concerned about saying I'm gonna have a better retail experience if I drink.
Yeah, I mean, I hear
I'm
you.
concerned about that.
I think we need to vote with the language about liquor and cannabis retail.
Yes.
And if people can vote how they want. I mean, I don't wanna try to speak for folks, but our local brick and mortar stores are trying to entice people to have shared experiences. And, you know, online is a big, huge pull. And so our businesses are trying to find creative and special ways to get people together, show them special things, you know, recreate community in downtowns, et cetera. So I'm comfortable once we remove cannabis and liquor retail. And we should move the bill with the language that we have, and if people are opposed, that's okay.
So, are you ready for motion, Madam Chair?
Yes, as long as people are comfortable either seeing the language up there.
Okay. So I share my screen.
Oh, yeah.
let me, just one more question.
Mhm.
How much of this is, sunset? Or would be sunset?
The retail establishment piece,
Mhm.
Oh, was I wrong?
sunsets.
It is
Two
sunset, that's
years.
what I thought.
So,
Okay.
So the retail one sunsets.
These are these all direction if I go.
But the one that goes from 10 to 20, the special event permits going from 10 to 20, is that a permanent change? Section
Yes.
6.
Yeah, that is a permanent change.
Did we hear from someone that 10 isn't enough?
I know people have reached out individually to folks. There are people around
Other
who might have,
Yeah, I think the
the
house.
house took more testimony on this.
Yeah, I can ask, we can ask, Matt, I mean, it basically makes it once a month as opposed to sort of arbitrary 10.
20 times. In a calendar year.
Well, are we
Special
talking
event
special events?
permits, yeah.
12, you're allowed 12 a year.
Well, this
20.
says 20 now, section 6. on
Oh,
page
I know,
That's the
no,
old-
it says.
That's the farmer's market special event. So
I think
you
that's a
can do
different-
up to 20.
This is for the same physical location.
Yeah, or there's the garlic festival.
This is special events in the same physical location. So this is them probably doing it at their own space.
Right,
This is if they wanna have events in their distillery, they can do 20 a year.
and the 20 is where they go from farmer's market to farmer's
Why
market.
don't
I
we
think,
just
isn't
say
it?
they can do tasting at their distillery?
Erin, you wanna clarify?
Hey, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Damien is gonna
So-
clarify this for us.
So a special event, is where the permit holder may sell the beverages, within the event boundaries. So this is like your festivals.
But this says same physical location.
Yes,
So
it
you-
is. Yeah, so you're looking. So, hold on.
It's a lot of his back.
All right, hold on. Yes, so same physical location, so not more than 20 special events, the same physical location. You can provide tastings and you can sell them. The sampling event permits are different. That is an event where you charge and you're providing a sampling of specific products with limits. Special venue is where there is no charge, you're not selling. And you're serving by the glass for consumption on the premises. So the special event allows you to sell by the bottle or serve samples to folks. Up to 20 in the same location per year. Sampling events, up to 4 per year for 4 consecutive days. You charge an entry fee and then serve samples up to a limited amount. Special venue serving permits, these are where you're not selling anything. You're not selling the alcohol. You may be selling other products. You're not selling the alcohol, but you're serving it by the glass for a period of a maximum of 6 hours. It is a 1-day permit, up to 12 per year. So it's been long enough since I worked in the law here that I've forgotten all of the ins and outs of why we created these different permits. But suffice to say, these are 3 different things. They are very confusing because they are special event, sampling event, and special venue.
Yes.
Right.
Special venue is the one we're talking about with retailers serving by the glass while folks shop. Special event is where you're actually having that is pulled.
Right, so it says 12 on page 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Well,
It is 12.
special event is on page 4.
Right, but
I know, but they're different.
just to clarify that they're separate. Special venue has 12.
Per
Right.
year.
Special event at the same location.
Up to
So-
20 at the same location in a calendar year. So that's a licensed manufacturer rectifier. So this is where basically what this is it's when someone who manufactures or rectifies an alcoholic beverage can get up to 20, currently it's up to 10 of these in the same physical location per year. This was created, now my memory is jogging, because we had a distiller who was located out of town, but had a location in town that they partnered with for
Right.
these special events.
And this was just last year.
And it was, no, we
Well,
worked on this
I-
years
I-
ago.
All right, well,
This was
So
my
you
last
like
go through
universal.
in this committee, so it
Yes.
was a while.
We
So
talked
this
about it
is
last
when
year.
Senator Cummings and I were last working on alcohol together. But this came up where you would have folks going to, for example, appearing at nights where there was food truck night. Or appearing with a retailer that they're partnering with.
Right.
To sell and serve samplings. Because a lot of our distillers and manufacturers are located off the beaten path. particularly if you're at a farm or in a small town. And this allowed them to reach a larger marketplace. So that's what we created this for.
So this is not farmers markets.
We
No,
do not.
this is-
That's what I
No,
just-
farmers markets are
Okay.
fourth class licenses.
Okay, I just wanna make sure this.
If I
Are you gonna
remember-
call Tucker tonight and be like?
No.
Okay,
I'm leaving Tucker alone so that he can enjoy Hank and,
Henrik,
And not sleep.
I did that just to,
I know,
Just to
just
push your
get me.
buttons.
Okay,
I know, we need to do pictures.
as I remember the issue, and at this time,
Yeah, and I do remember this, we talked about it, I just wanna make sure.
distillers and wineries and, you know, were just starting up. And so we did a lot of tweaking of the liquor laws to allow them to get their product to market. There was one that had a deal, a relationship with a bar, a restaurant in town that served their, I think it was wine, other than beer. Because they were, their
Far away.
farm was up, you know, Vermont, back there, and you didn't get people there for tasting. So we said, okay, you can do your tasting in this one place downtown, which got to be, I suppose, that was before food trucks.
Are you just dreaming of transportation?
no,
Right now,
I'm
Jamie.
just laughing. I was joking with Representative Byron that the way the room is filled up must be a sign of how poorly I'm doing at fucking.
No, no. It's how many people
No.
care about
Yeah.
what we're doing.
No, it's,
House.
everyone's like, oh no.
I don't remember what it was.
That was the 10 to 20, but we realized it's a different thing than a 12. I'm gonna ask us to vote. So
We're voting on the,
we're looking at the new language.
okay, not, we've already done eliminating the cannabis.
We voted. on
Please,
that.
yeah.
Damon can show that to us,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, well,
Cannabis and 802 retail outlets.
That's fair.
just a second. One last change I'm making. All right. Share the screen.
Thank you, Damien, for your patience.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
So this is why I love working on alcohol, honestly. It's always a fun discussion.
Oh, and
So-
who's arrived?
I don't wanna say you're a day late and a dollar short, Charles, but we are voting, and I think we're in a good place.
On with.
My only concern with alcohol is that nobody brings free samples.
We're not on
We
six.
didn't add
Because
our.
then
oh.
we did not add
Then we
ourselves
wouldn't
to
be-
No, the
list.
worst part was when they come and they bring
Or just-
all of the they put it in front of us at like 3 o'clock and then leave. It was like.
You know,
Okay, so let's look at this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is section 1, as used in this section, retail establishment shall not include a Vermont agency liquor store or a cannabis establishment as that term is defined in 7 VSA 861.
Okay.
And same thing in section 2, just adding a new subsection.
So that sounds.
Yep. And you're okay with the agency liquor store phrasing?
Yeah, well,
Okay, great. Been a few years, so I just want to make sure that the terminology hasn't changed.
Yeah.
This isn't. They did.
That's how we used to phrase it, so.
I don't know if that's still the phrase.
It's just very storage agency, and that's been referred to as different.
Yeah.
Agent
Yeah.
liquor store.
I mean, 802
It's like a
Spirit
retail
is,
outlet.
That's a, not a.
802 Spirits is branding, so we wouldn't use that in statute.
Call, conversations with our licensing team that our agencies and licensees, they felt pretty explicitly, prohibited on-site consumption like this.
Okay.
If you wanna add that as a buffer.
I think we're just understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't
That
understanding.
is
This isn't going to change any terms of the contracts or agency agreements.
Yes.
Especially if it's already prohibited, it's just, this would be, it's basically providing a backstop that would prevent
Right.
the department from undoing that without a change.
Yeah, as long as it wouldn't impact like a potential tasting or something, or.
No, that's a separate permit. Okay. Carry on.
And then the next two sections, we're just striking through the language. So that's all I need to show you there.
Okay, that was the change we made before this vote, and the rest of the changes are in your packet.
That's right. So I'm going to send this off. It's draft 2.1. I will send it for uh,
2.1 is what we're.
editing as soon as possible.
I'll just say, I think our flood impacted downtown retailers can use every tool in the toolbox they can get to bring people back together and have special events. And in Vermont, at least, special events usually means alcohol. So I think this is a good thing for our communities and our businesses right now. And DLL says they can manage this responsibly.
I agree, and I think your first point about bricks and mortar is.
Bricks and mortar period, but
And our flood impact.
Yes.
But both are challenging. And hopefully this is a helpful tool. Well, I could just make a
yeah,
motion.
we can make a motion. I don't know.
So
we're just
I
gonna
would make the motion that we amend H 867, all two votes, that we amend H 867 with draft 2.1.
So that's one,
Yeah, it's a
that's
supplement.
the amendment.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can do it
so,
on the thing.
Senator Brock,
Yes.
Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Senator Cummings,
No.
that's not to amend. That's,
Okay, I'll vote
I think here, yes.
amend.
Okay, alright, is that okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, Senator Harrison, yes, Senator Trump,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
So 5-0-0 on the amendment.
I would follow it up with, I would make a motion that we pass out H 867 as amended favorably.
Okay, Senator Brock,
Yes.
Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Senator Cummings,
No.
Senator Harrison, yes. Senator Robbins, yes.
Yes.
Vote is 4-1-0.
I would look for report orders. No. I, the privacy of, you might do H 55,
You have to, why don't you do it?
Senator Brown.
We'd love to have you do it. I've done all the liquor bills in this committee for a long time, so I'd be happy to share it if I'm doing it.
Damien writes good summaries.
Alright.
Straightforward.
Great, thank you.
You can just take Representative Byron's floor.
Actually, you know what would be really helpful? We say we're gonna do this every year, but to have one sheet, and I think Tucker did this, one sheet with all the permits, so that we all know.
But, well, I mean, if he can't find it, let's not
No,
do
it's
that
somewhere.
to poor Damien.
See what I can find.
Yeah.
Okay, see what we can find.
Just understand that.
Yeah. Oh, I know, we have to ask
There's
that.
only so many hours in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
So-
it exists.
Do my best.
You wanna sleep?
She'll bring you pictures.
he'll also be on the floor, so
I will.
if he has some of this in his head, which he was able to help us with special venue, for special permit, for special something else.
Right.
We've done this to ourselves, so
We
let
have,
the man rest.
But I believe we haven't, I was gonna get up and look and see in my file, so I'll look.
Okay,
I'll see if I can find it.
thank you so much for recording.
Maybe, no, Charles may have, I
Damien.
kind of was looking at Charles, you
We
have,
should let Damien go and get
Okay.
Michelle in the witness
let's
chair.
leave it with David.
Are you staying for
Let's leave it with
cannabis,
Charles.
Representative Farrow? Sure will.
I actually came for the cannabis. I
I
just
know.
showed up
Yeah,
early
exactly.
for the alcohol.
Yeah.
I was trying to pace myself this morning.
Right, that's why we separated.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you, Damien, so we'll see you back soon.
Alright.
If we
Thank
can,
you.
do you think 10:45?
Oh, you have me back at 10:45?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
hopefully, okay,
I'm gonna just check on the floor,
okay.
so
What we
Do we
don't have,
have the bill from you?
you
The
should,
bill?
right?
Can you add a 2-year extension on veggie to that bill, please?
oh,
Yes, he's working.
Okay,
fine.
I think 2 it will help it go faster.
is
Oh my God.
finance.
We've gone from.
Veggies and finance,
Yeah,
I just got watched.
Yes. I
I
understand,
had big
it's
bills
to
that
2 years.
last night, you know.
For veggies,
okay.
okay.
I was told.
Yes, it's
I
I can
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
three, I'm just, that's not an appropriation.
I don't know.
Veggie
What
bill.
is it?
What's the number of
So
our
we
veggie bill?
stayed, found
H,
the-
it's in finance, H10.
What, H10?
Okay, so we wanna.
Do you wanna move H10?
I'm under strict instructions of what I have to move.
Right, so
So
I think
I
we
will
should,
do H10.
okay,
It's just not gonna be today.
Okay, so let's.
okay,
I
so
will
we can
get
work on it next week, and we have to
amongst
strike
the-
out the small, with the forgivable loans.
Yes, and I understand, yeah, and I'm working on getting that information.
For anybody that wants something.
Yes, because we got the 5 million for VGAP that I hope moved to Vita, and that's the best.
So let's leave it alone.
Which is pretty damn good, I'm sorry.
No, it's good for this
Yeah,
year, it's
yeah.
just folks wanted the forgivable.
No, I know, but that
That's
was,
a whole
it was
conversation.
going, that was going to die in another.
I think we should spend 5 minutes talking about this, but not now. I
Yes,
just wanted
so
to-
never mind,
So
don't.
never
put-
mind,
don't
no
put it in.
changes.
Yeah,
Yeah, no
Okay.
changes, let's
Okay.
hold for
changes from
H10.
this
I like
committee,
the time.
finance, I
Thank
made
you.
no guarantee.
Yes,
No, I understand.
hold on, okay.
Is it?
I told them
Okay.
last night. that
Michelle,
we're
are you
starting
free
in
after
March.
10:45?
Whistle dogs are very.
is Michelle clear? Okay, let's start on cannabis, it doesn't seem like we're gonna be able to vote it out today. So thank you, Michelle, for your patience. Are we ready? Allison, I know it's your birthday, so.
No, we're talking about bulldogs.
I know, that's right, you are, and we're moving on.
It is her birthday.
I know.
Yeah.
I tried to highlight that as I tried to bring it.
I'll take
The
some.
math, I remember Fred.
Okay, Michelle, hi. We're doing
Welcome.
H612 cannabis. We are done with liquor.
I've only got this one. It's actually-
Okay, we're now pivoting to cannabis.
It's not official until Senator Clark says that. Here we
Yeah,
go. Pivoting to cannabis.
trying to get my bearings.
We have several DSU bulldogs. and-
Oh, good. So glad. H612. Here we go.
Okay.
Hi, Michelle. Hi. Good morning. So are we still looking at S by the house?
You are looking at
Okay.
S Pass by the house. I did connect with Bryn about your hearing that you had on Wednesday. And so I know that they had requested a couple of changes in there, and I did take the liberty of starting a strike, an amendment, well, not a strike, but an amendment for you. And the two that I started with were in section 2, you'll recall that there is a provision in there where the CCB had proposed some language on the definition of controls or controlling, trying to meet the FBI's requirements for doing the federal background checks.
Yeah.
But that there's kind of been a change in the status and how they're looking at that now. So the CCB would like to pull back that proposal in section 2.
Can we pause? I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
We have our Taiwan delegation.
Okay, well, we can do a quick hello, that's
Okay.
fine, and then we'll see them on the floor. You can come in.
Would you like to come in?
Okay, Director General, Deputy Director General,
Come on in.
please come in. Hi.
I will be you too.
Welcome, it's good to see you.
I mean, we are on the record, so if you'd like to say your names and roles for the record, and then we'll see you on the floor. We're grateful to meet you, and we can introduce ourselves.
Okay, sure.
I'm Senator Keisha Hinsdale. I've emailed with some of you. We haven't been able to connect. I chair the Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs Committee.
I'm Ann Cummings. I have been under Taiwan. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Ann represents the county we're in here.
Oh.
So I'm Allison Clarkson, representative, and senator from Windsor County, majority leader in the Senate, vice chair of this committee, and a happy participant in the Taiwan Vermont exchange, which I really treasured that experience so much. And with which we're in part honoring you today on the floor. So it's great to have you.
I'm Senator Randy Brock. I represent Franklin County and part of Grand Isle County in the northwest corner of the state, just below the Canadian border. I'm the Senate Minority Leader, and I've had the pleasure of visiting Taiwan many times.
Yes.
Wow.
More than any of us.
I work in real life for an investment company, Bell Investments, that had offices both in Taiwan and in two other cities or in Taipei rather, as well as two other cities in Taiwan. So I've enjoyed my business there many times.
Wonderful. Wendy Harrison, Senator Wendy Harrison. I am in the southeast corner of this state and I represent Windham County where Brattleboro is. I have not yet been to Taiwan, but I will make it there someday. Thank you.
And you've had a terrible earthquake since.
Yes. Charles and Wellington, would you be kind enough to introduce yourselves and
Yeah, hi, morning everyone. I'm Charles Liao. Yeah, I'm the Director General of Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Boston. Yeah, which represent Taiwan government in New England area. I came to Boston just a couple months ago. And nice meeting you. Great honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Wei Li Shi, Deputy Director General of Tech Boston. My major duties is to promote the relations, bilateral relations with between Taiwan and Vermont. I'm very happy I have the opportunity over the 2-3 years. I have some make progress between our bilateral relations in terms of the economic, trade, and education. Hope I will fare in the future where our two states and Taiwan have a more significant progress in the future. I'm honored to have the opportunity to meet all of you.
well, it's great to have you here because as everybody here knows, Taiwan is our second largest, this is the second largest economy we export our goods to. And you are great partners on both education, in commerce, and in so many different capacities. So it is wonderful to have you here today. It's just terrific.
Thank you.
And we will be honoring you at 11:30 on the floor of the Senate. And I'm happy to take you up and show you where that is, and I'll be right back. Does that make some sense?
Sure, yes.
Because I think they're,
I wonder if Representative Jerome, you could, but she might be in the hall, but.
Yeah, right.
is she still there?
We can check. Don't worry. I will see
Okay.
you.
We'll see you upstairs in the Senate chamber.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, okay, so back to the two changes that, and certainly your decision, but I was just trying to.
Yes.
Things are moving quickly, so I did
Do we
start
have-
an amendment.
This was what Bryn testified to yesterday. It is not an amendment we've seen yet because we might have other changes.
Right.
So Michelle just got started because I don't think we heard any opposition. They were fairly technical or had
Right.
to do with the market and the
Right.
industry.
And those two were the removal of section 2 to the definition, the change to the definition of controlling, because there's still a little ambiguity with what will satisfy the
Right.
FBI on that piece. And so don't want to move forward with something that's not gonna work. So removal of section 2. And then in the section that has to do with the farm buildings being exempt from certain fire code provisions. And my understanding from Bryn was that in speaking with the fire division, that they offered some alternative language in terms of identifying a building that's used in outdoor cultivation of cannabis and the exemption for that.
So we're getting that from, or you got that?
I have that. I
Oh,
have that
great.
all. I
Thank
have
you.
an amendment
Okay.
started, but
Perfect.
you hadn't directed me to do anything, but I just wanted to get a jump start, so.
Right.
Well, we're, we're so glad that those out of committee conversations were so productive.
So Michelle, did we finish our walkthrough?
I don't know, that's what I wanted to ask you
Okay.
is, how did you want to approach this? Do you want me to just do a quick walkthrough of each section? And then if you have questions more
I
about
wasn't
it?
here for a majority of it, unfortunately. I was okay letting medical marijuana go right now because it's being discussed in Senate Health and Welfare and they're gonna give us an amendment.
And there are a
That's your
lot.
did walk through with Bryn.
Yes, right, that's right. I missed a lot of it, so I didn't know if we finished. I wanted to catch Michelle up. I know I'd like to talk about the setback section
Okay,
before we move on to any other changes.
Sure.
Did anyone else want to revisit a particular section? Or can we start there while you look?
We can start there.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I will just let you know, so I didn't do those sections like
Okay.
Brady did because he
Brady did.
handles land use, but I
Okay.
can answer the
I-
basics.
yeah.
But if you wanna really get into
I think
some of the zoning
Right,
and things like
Representative
that.
Byron could probably answer some questions too about where these came from and why.
And I thought we had asked Ag to look at section 16,
We have asked Act to look at section 16.
which is the setbacks.
I don't have word back, so I still would like to understand them.
Yeah, just to say,
Yeah.
if we're asking health and welfare, we're also asking.
I had a question, I think for Brent. And there was just a news article about black market cannabis farms turning up in very rural areas of Maine and other rural states. And they're owned by the Chinese mafia. Have we had any issues in Vermont? They're taking over, one was, it sounds like they took over barns. They had an old chicken farm out in the middle of nowhere. And they were tracing them by their electricity use. But it seems, they said they were popping up across the country. And since we're very rural, and there's probably a bunch of old barns out there, I was wondering if we'd had any indication that we had an issue.
So so for the record, Brent Hare, Executive Director of the Cannabis Control Board, not yet, no. But I did request in this year's budget adjustment bill an additional 2 compliance positions so that we could expand our enforcement efforts around the state and keep an eye on what's happening in the
Okay, thank you.
So going to the setback section, these are kind of widely different setbacks, so I don't know if it's a question for legislative council, but it might be a question for Representative Byron. Just understanding the thinking behind, I mean, I think the 25 to 100 is just a really big jump.
Mhm.
And I know some communities that would like to use that to disallow cannabis. So we would be treating it differently than other agriculture with this provision.
Yeah, for the record, Representative Matt Byron, Vice Chair of Government Operations, Military Affairs, sponsored the bill, and reporter. So with in this scenario, we reclassified cannabis under agriculture last session. And in doing so, opened up some access to certain parcels that was never really, in our committee's opinion, the legislative intent of the original passage. There is one notable sighting in a cul-de-sac in a residential area that is operating a tier 1 industrial grow. Not personal consumption grow, but
I
industrial
keep
grow.
hearing about the one, and we are hearing from people who are concerned about the retroactivity of this piece. So I don't, if Ag doesn't have time to hear from those folks, they are businesses.
No.
And we'll have to, did you hear from businesses who wanted the retroactivity removed?
So I would like to have Ledge Council speak to the nuance of the license, and that would probably be Brady on this. And so the way the licenses are reissued, they're reissued on like a rolling basis, not a renewal basis. So with that, they actually renew to new rules, so that it creates a little bit less sort of a static link
Right.
to how rules change when things are made, put in statute or through CCD rule. And I don't want to go too deep into this.
Is this particular person a bad actor that could be taken care of when they go back to renew?
So I think I would actually rather CCD answer that question. But in my mind, functionally with this is a very new market, right? And we very, very often in this building, as we do these jobs, see, witness 1 or 2 things that show us a flaw in our statute policy. And I think that this particular instance is the one that has the brightest shine shined upon it. But it's not to be said that others are not going to engage in this way. And I am just going to go back to the previous statement of it was never the legislative intent to allow an industrial grow to occur in a residential neighborhood on a very small parcel.
Can we say that?
What's that?
Can we say that you can't grow it in residential, in zone residential area.
I'm very open to the conversation. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just here to listen and offer any insight when I can. But
Is that a Michael Brady question?
it's something that has popped up, and my concern is leaving our statutes and regulations in a way that could lead to more of this
Yeah,
activity.
okay.
I mean, I don't know anybody who grows any other agricultural product on a 0.5 acre in a residential area.
Right, we just, for example, we don't allow slaughter to take place in those places. We worked a lot with people about those. Yeah, so.
That's kind of where my head's at, and so like the conversation led to the setbacks being a way of doing this. Totally open to the
It
conversation on
feels
the
a bit like a
distances.
sledgehammer because of all the other folks who. Even if they have to go renew and then they're renewing to new, they built their business plan around certain setbacks in a much larger parcel or a different area.
Yep, and I'm very empathetic to that.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part of this, right? Like, I don't think there's like a great answer. It's trying to find out the like least impactful answer.
So we could say zone residential or less than an acre in a populated area, whatever.
Yeah.
So this is the language you landed on. Did you explore those other types of?
We discussed a range of things and worked with Councilor Grady on it and just trusted his, years of experience within this subject matter
Okay,
to guide us in this direction.
okay,
So-
Senator Clarkson.
So we might consider having Mike in to discuss it, but my only concern with saying zone residential is that so many of our towns don't have zoning.
Mm-hmm.
I think that may be a neater solution to this is talking about residential areas and not doing these specific setbacks. So I'd be very open to that. I think that's a good solution, but I would not so use the word zoned.
Well,
She's in health and welfare, if you let know.
oh, okay.
She's great.
Okay, Senator Harrison.
Well, there is right, if a municipality does not have zoning, the setback shall be 10 feet, but 10 is pretty small.
I know, yeah, they're
I
kind
don't
of
think
little.
10 would address the issue.
But may I?
Mm-hmm.
But that's in an area that does not have zoning, so you probably wouldn't have the compact residential that this situation speaks to.
It
Right,
may
area that
not,
does not
but-
have zoning, yeah.
Right, well, there are towns that aren't zoned that do have dense areas.
Yep, no, I agree with you.
But there might be a way to make that compact nature a condition, even though it's not zone residential. I don't know how we would do.
I will say now, as I think about this, I wanna use this conversation to inform a conversation with ag. We need their help. Because there are a lot of agricultural practices we don't allow in certain areas. Yes, you can have your little vegetable garden, but you can't have industrial anything.
You can have chickens, but you can have.
You can have 4 chickens.
I lost the argument with the pig, because
Right.
I was told by my daughter, if I treated the pig as a pet, it was a pet.
Right.
I didn't buy that, and we didn't get a pig,
Mhm.
but people, there was Hamilton,
Right.
then Hamilton had a friend. So there were 2 very large pigs in one of our very nice residential areas.
Right, and if they're a pet that's named, it's okay or whatever. But this is where agriculture really have to inform us.
Because I'm thinking, my neighborhood was built in a horseshoe. And when we were moved in, and everybody else that was moved in was told that property was reserved for the children of the neighborhood to play. Unfortunately, at one point, there was no deed in people's bed. But that would be a place where somebody could decide to grow cannabis. And at one point, there were 66 kids on our street. And the kids would be playing near there, or it would be an attractive nuisance.
Was there cannabis?
No.
Oh, okay.
I can't imagine.
It got quit claim to the city
Okay,
at some point, but it's
right.
a couple acres sitting in the
Mhm.
center of a residential neighborhood that some neighbor could have bought
Right.
and planted cannabis on.
So
Yeah, I'm just, I think we should compare this to other types of industrial or agricultural use that are prohibited in dense neighborhoods. Or the municipality is allowed to make a case by case determination. You know, if someone's keeping 4 chickens or slaughtering goats in their backyard, that's different things. So I would just wonder if there's a way for a municipality to deal with it that isn't any municipality saying 100-foot setback.
Well, or 25, I think it begins with 25. It-
25 is different than 100, that's all, like, the difference between 25 and 100 is pretty vast
So
in agricultural.
maybe
Yeah.
we can understand the difference, when you talk about a cannabis cultivation district, can those exist within residential areas?
That would be determined by the municipality when they set up their cannabis cultivation district.
But we already have cannabis cultivation districts.
No, this establishes.
This establishes them, that's the whole.
Yeah, so it kind of jumps a section, like your,
Yeah.
the setback sections that refer to the cannabis cultivation district, the language for the district itself is in the following section.
Which
So you
is,
get,
yeah, which is why I'm actually.
it like reads backwards,
That
yeah.
would be
Oh,
some way
yeah.
to limit housing. If I declared twice I didn't want housing, but was very well limited to housing as my cannabis cultivation district, I would do that.
A municipality has to set it up, I believe, is that
No, that's
correct?
what she's saying.
Who'd you hear from on the cannabis cultivation districts?
That was O'Grady, for the drafting, and I would have to look back on our,
Could you send Magali the witness list?
absolutely.
Okay, so like VLCT,
It was at VLCT, we heard from a couple of other municipalities, that we had the Essex, select board folks in at one point.
Well, I bet you,
Yes,
people want cannabis cultivation districts.
they were
yeah,
broadly favorable to the concept,
Okay,
yes.
because
so you could say in a certain type of, okay,
I have to call the government.
okay, call, you're supposed to.
yeah,
Um,
I got a
there,
phone call.
Jason, it seems.
I haven't gotten to give Jim money yet.
Okay,
So a
we do
cannabis,
have to talk to some folks.
so this is
Yeah.
a new district, I think that's good. Because then you can talk about it in relation to other districts like residential or sub-residential. I think as I'm reading this, I'm more comfortable, I just think. Anyway, I would
And
look
you talked to
at,
some of the businesses who said this would impact them negatively.
Yes,
Okay, what was the flavor of that? Do you know?
between, committee testimony and emails, there were. I think some of it was concern thinking, because the language is up to, right? So you don't have to do the 100-foot, it's like an up to, so it's, you give a lot of leeway between the 25 and the 100. So.
not larger than.
Correct, yeah, so up to, not longer than that, yes, but so they can do it, they can do a smaller setback than what is the number in front of you. I mean, there was a range on it, some people were benign, but of course, when you're doing something that impacts people, it potentially impacts people, you're gonna hear from them. If it doesn't impact people, you don't hear from them. So I would say the impacted, and I would ask the CCB for the numbers, but it would have the potential of impacting a number of licenses. But most of these outdoor cultivators are sited in places where this would have no or little impact. And many of whom, if the setback did apply to a structure or some of their operation, it could be easily moved if the parcel's large enough. So there's a lot of variables to that question, Senator.
Okay. I still, I'm just gonna say out loud for the committee's purposes, and when I talk to agriculture, I still might look at a retroactivity piece, but then looking specifically at residential cultivation, because I could see how that would be its own unique problem, that we don't wanna just put a setback on everybody versus deal with, dense neighborhoods.
Mhm.
Yeah, like high density residential or something.
But retro with somebody who's already in a dense area, I'm not sure I would want to grant retro
No,
to somebody who's in.
but if
maybe
we're
a
if we're
very
doing
dense-
retroactive for setbacks, that's different than a new regulation. That's separate. on residential. Which I would hope would empower the municipality to then,
Look who just appeared.
okay, so we have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. What a gift.
Enter stage left.
We're on cannabis cultivation districts.
Let's see.
Mhm.
So we hope to talk to Senate Agriculture about this section. I'm not sure if they've called you in yet. Okay. We
They're
do
working.
only have a week
Right.
left, so we can't really take our chances if this moves. We want, we have to figure it out. My question is, it sounds like maybe you contemplated other options than setbacks when we're talking about residential areas. I mean, right now, there are a lot of things you're prohibited from doing that are industrial or agricultural in a residential area. Is that all municipal zoning, like for chickens, or you can't slaughter a goat, or?
So first you have to realize that the exemption from municipal zoning for farming applies to those activities that are subject to the required agricultural practices. Required agricultural practices is something called the Noah's Ark list. And you don't qualify as farming unless you are managing a certain number of animals, and they literally list the number of animals for each animal site. So if you were below that number, that threshold for whatever animal you have on your property, then that's subject to municipal regulation.
Okay, so
So
animals are different.
The issue arose in Barry.
Mhm.
A person had several chickens, 6 or 7 chickens,
Right.
and 3 roosters, and said,
Yeah.
you can't regulate me, I'm farming.
Mhm.
And the Agency of Agriculture doesn't want to get involved in those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
So that's when the Noah's Ark list was developed.
Can we do something similar for cannabis?
Well, there's already a provision in the RAPs that says if you're producing an agricultural product in excess of a certain income per year, and I think it's just $2,000, then you qualify as farming. But the issue
Do they
here,
combine crop? Like if you have ducks and cannabis, is that? Oh, and you,
cannabis is not an agricultural crop. By statute,
okay,
it is not an agricultural crop.
so that's a separate RAP though, you're saying?
Yeah, but so the policy decision when cannabis was first legalized was whether or not to treat cannabis as farming.
Uh-huh,
And the General Assembly chose not to,
okay,
except that they said that small cultivators who were concerned that, and I can't remember the threshold for small cultivation, 1,000. They were concerned that if they cultivated on their farm, that they would lose current use protection, current use taxation
okay,
on their farm. So you said small cultivators can still participate in current use. And then the next year, the small cultivators came in and said, hey, in addition to current use, we want some additional regulatory benefits from farming. We want to be exempt from Act 250, we want to be exempt from municipal zoning, and we want to qualify for the sales tax exemptions for agriculture. And the General Assembly gave them, but they didn't give them all of farming. All of the regulatory benefits of farming, because all of the regulatory benefits of farming are 80 pages long. So you're not saying that they don't have to have license plates on their farm trucks. You're not saying that they don't have to get a certified electrician to wire their barn. You're not saying that they don't need a toilet in a barn where people are working, because normally where you have employees, you need to have restrooms, et cetera, et cetera. You do not provide all of those other you provide them with the 4/5 regulatory benefits. And the year after the small cultivators got it, all the other cultivators wanted it. And so then that raised the issue, most notably in Essex Junction, right? Essex Junction, that a cultivator who was authorized by the board and had a certain number of ducts, I think in excess of the Noah's Ark list.
That's a modest.
Right, and so the municipality couldn't regulate it. Couldn't regulate the ducts because they were farming. Couldn't regulate the cannabis production because the General Assembly said last year the municipalities can't regulate cannabis production through municipal zoning.
So we now are changing.
So now you have,
Okay,
now
We have a
you,
proposal to do that.
right, well, you have a proposal to allow in part municipalities to set some conditions on the cultivation and to incent that cultivation in certain parts of town
okay,
by reducing the setbacks that would be applied if it was in a cannabis cultivation district.
okay. So the $2,000 limit. If that applies to agriculture in a residential area,
So the $2,000 limit is really inapplicable here because you have said they're not farming. But
but could
you,
we set a separate $2,000 limit on this activity?
I think the question you need to ask is what authority do we give municipalities to regulate cannabis?
I mean, I'm trying to treat it like agriculture where we don't have a default. And if we're saying you can't grow more than $2,000 worth of tomatoes,
But we,
but
Now, if you grow $2,000 or more of tomatoes, you are farming.
you are considered a farm.
and you can't exist in a residential area.
No, you can.
You can, then what? You have to,
The municipality doesn't get to regulate that.
oh,
Because we have our
so it's just a metric
They fall
between the
under the
difference of being
exemptions.
a hobbyist and a farmer.
Correct.
Okay, I thought it was like you're in a new threshold where you have to,
Well, then you are a small farm.
Okay.
You meet all kinds of requirements. If you're a
Okay.
hobbyist, you don't really want to trigger
uh-huh,
the RUPs.
right,
You wanna, because then you've gotta do ag water quality, then you have to
Right.
do small
Yeah,
farm
right.
certification. then
Mhm.
you-
I can run all the phosphates off my tomato plants I want.
Right.
Right, and you go.
I can pour it on my lawn.
Oh, please, Lord, no.
so I
I don't
guess
take the clean water.
what I'm hearing is that there's consequences of the setback, but there's also consequences if we tried to take dense residential and regulate out the ability to cultivate outdoor cannabis.
Well, this is true.
If you. I guess. You can go back to what you did when you originally authorized cultivation of cannabis, where you let municipalities have the ability to regulate. But you ran into issues like in Charlotte,
Yeah,
where they said the setback was 50 feet.
right,
And that makes it parcel pretty hard to pull.
but now they can do 100 feet,
Right, it's up to 100 feet. So
I think Charlotte would probably take it up to 100 feet. So
they,
then-
they may,
But why would we let them do that instead? I think that's gonna affect more agricultural type spaces than what we're talking about with a residential less than an acre property.
I mean, you're kind of in a. I'm complicating it's not here,
For one guy.
right? You're trying to regulate something that you don't want to regulate as farming.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And
But does this municipality have the ability to treat this as a separate type of nuisance?
Well, we have,
technically, no, they're not
Okay.
supposed to, because there's another provision in this law that says that we can't use their nuisance laws to regulate it as a nuisance.
so they can't do it as an ordinance. They couldn't have an ordinance like we do have noise ordinance after a certain time. We have-
Well, the language is, someone remind me what section.
16
This
and
is
17.
17.
It's page 16 and 17 and 8.
Section 16 are the setbacks and 17 is the.
So
Okay, so you keep going.
So you did something very similar with mandated setbacks from certain electric generation. You just said, because municipalities can't regulate electric generation either.
Okay.
You said, hey, there's gotta at least be minimum setbacks.
Okay.
So
I guess I'm open to 50-foot setback. Representative Byron, did you set 100-foot setback? For, what was the reasoning for 100-foot setback?
I can't remember the specifics of that conversation, it was
Okay.
like several months ago, but we were really leaning into the up to on that, trying to give people
But
within.
there are municipalities that will just leave right into.
Oh, no, I'm aware of
100
that.
foot.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I recognize that. But I also knew we were gonna have a conversation further downstream
Okay,
in this very moment.
yeah.
So I am definitely willing to have a conversation about adjusting those numbers. And I can speak with confidence that my chair is on the same page.
Okay, great, Senator Cummings. And we're gonna keep going
I'm
on this until
taking
Damien
the
comes in.
opinions not. I mean, we said electric generation because there's a public good,
Mm-hmm,
so we don't want towns to say, no, you can't do it. I'm not sure I can have the same sense of public good by saying that towns can't regulate cannabis. I wouldn't have a problem with my kids playing in a field of corn, which kids don't really go out playing. Maybe. But I would have some concerns about them playing in a field of cannabis. Or, because if it's there in a residential area, it will get accessed infrequently by kids who just take a few leaves.
yeah,
So I can see where the towns, but we don't wanna call it agriculture because we don't
That
wanna
exempts it.
regulate it the way we regulate agriculture. So we've got ourselves in one of these bonds.
I don't even know which.
It's not a cow and it's not a horse, but what is this? And we haven't,
Right,
and when we did this, we were starting out not knowing anything.
right.
And we're kind of working our way through
Yeah.
it.
I mean, my thinking up until now has been, we're trying to treat it like agriculture, where you don't wanna limit, you know,
Regular.
large scale agriculture or larger like you don't wanna treat it differently because of the crop,
Right.
whatever we wanna call it, but
On
we
the
don't
other-
allow a certain scale of, we allow municipalities to regulate a certain scale of farming in their municipalities, is that right?
I don't think so.
no,
No, we
if
don't.
it's below the Noah's Ark list or below $2,000 an ag, it's not farming.
Right, but
You
if
have a
it's
widow
above
duck.
that,
A widow duck.
if you have 20 chickens in your backyard,
That's not farming.
okay, how many chickens is farming?
I can't remember,
What are we talking about?
Basically, but the neighbors complain. that you
But
get-
okay,
neighbors
you
don't
have
complain, no one does.
50 chickens in your backyard and you have half an acre.
I think 50 is above the threshold, and so that would be farming.
And then you would be subject to rules that might say you can't do farming here.
No, the RAPs don't say you can't do farming.
So someone can have 50 chickens, a farm of 50 chickens in their backyard in Essex
What the
Junction.
gentleman in Essex Junction is doing with his ducks.
Right.
So the ducks are already a problem.
The ducks are farming, from my
The
understanding.
ducks are farming and the municipality can't say
He's
there's
got
too
all
many ducks.
kinds of runoff and all kinds of manure control and phosphate control that we put on farms. Because by the
Right,
time
he's
you get,
technically not allowed to let any water from his
Okay,
production area.
so he's
be
being
his
regulated
farm.
like a duck farm.
He should be.
Is he being regulated like a duck farm?
Yes.
He is,
Yep.
okay,
That's
so
what-
he's regulated as a duck farm. So can he be regulated as a cannabis cultivator
That's what we
That's what
tried
he
to
is,
do.
yeah. The board gave him
Okay.
a license.
or give him a license?
So that's step one. But I think what we're trying to get at is what's appropriate in dense
Yeah.
residential areas. I
Right.
think let's bring it back to what our concern is.
Yeah.
In this committee,
Is the-
this is my concern.
is the concern that duck farm, which it sounds like we can regulate, or that because he's growing cannabis also,
So,
not sure what we can do?
I can't,
Anyone, I just wanna say, anyone here for H55, we're waiting for Damien to get off the floor for Prop 3. But you're welcome to, we don't know when that will be, but you know maybe more than we do. if you watch the floor.
Be showers.
So the House Government Ops making certain testimony from either the city manager of Essex Junction or the chair of their
Okay.
select board, I can't remember his exact title, but, and he didn't focus on the particular cultivator at issue in Essex Junction, but he showed different parcels where if cultivation was allowed, there would be no authority of the municipality to regulate, and it was things like a parcel right next to a children's playground, or a parcel right next to like the post office, or a parcel. So this is like showing considerations that they would like to regulate that they
Mhm.
can't regulate now.
Right, okay. Senator Cummings is right, it's a Gideon's knot, and I don't even know, I think it's Governor's jurisdiction.
I think it's a little different than the other things that we force municipalities to have in there. You know, like shelters. I mean, there's a public need for shelters and they're
Yeah.
often.
Right,
um,
healthcare facility.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but with cannabis, don't we already limit the total production in the state?
So you already,
It's
sorry.
limits the total production in
we
the
don't-
state
we don't have a
by the licenses?
You don't have a cap, you don't have any cap on your licenses.
No, that's interesting. Okay, so
Really?
we're,
Well, yeah.
well, we
Well, that's
do
in-
regulate the amount that's being produced.
I don't know if we want Bryn in the witness chair, I'm
But-
trying to see if they can contemplate a solution to this.
Well, what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is
Yeah.
that it's a different challenge. There's not the same. I'm confident that we'll be able to get produced all we need to produce. Like, I'm not confident about that with shelters.
Oh,
So-
okay,
so-
yeah.
So I'm okay
Good
with,
with shelters,
Right,
it's not
right.
common good with cannabis.
so I'm okay with municipalities regulating this. I think we will have enough.
Well, they're already have the driver on who gets to sell in their.
Right, but I'm just talking about production.
Right.
About
And
cultivation.
it's
So,
so
I think we're
inappropriate.
gonna,
okay. Because it's not farming, we could set a threshold in residential areas.
Yes.
Yeah, we could.
Period. We don't have to worry about whether it's farming or not. We can just say if you're producing more than X something, municipalities can regulate you.
No,
well,
not sure volume is gonna.
well,
be-
you have these
Well,
areas.
volume
That's
or
good.
sales or something.
The districts.
So,
is
so
good.
what I always thought was a way to address this, but it's not an immediate remedy, is to give the board the ability to set by rule, setting requirements for cultivation.
Bryn,
Oh, that's a good idea.
that sounds much better.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not your decision that much.
No, I think that's a great solution. I'm just curious why the House didn't accept that.
It's
Is it also there too?
it's not an immediate, it's not gonna address the immediate consideration.
But a complaint could go to the Cannabis Control Board about the citing conditions in this case.
Right, or they wouldn't have issued the license to begin with.
They did, but Bryn, do you feel like the Cannabis Control Board's hands were tied, that this just meets a legislative standard, or you feel that this should be an allowed model of cannabis cultivation?
This is
Oh,
the vote
great,
on
okay, this is the vote on Prop 3, so we've got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, so I think the way I would respond to that is that when the original bill passed, it was the contemplation, like the intent of the bill was not only to create a legalized market, but also to bring in the illicit market. And so there was an understanding off the bat that if municipalities were given free rein to regulate where these grow sites can be cited, that there would be municipalities that would essentially zone it out of their
Yeah.
territory.
Right.
So, and the goal was really to allow all of the growers that were currently growing in the illicit market to be able to come in lawfully and get licensed.
I mean, nobody wants to deal with neighbor issues, but in this case, could you see a path where you might change the rules in residential areas?
So I think we would need specific directives to create those rules. We were not.
Can you give us examples of what kinds of like what the ballpark would it be? You're selling a certain amount, you're growing a certain amount, you're in a small acreage.
The density of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think, I mean, all of those things, yes, but I think the concern that the board has is how do you want us to make those decisions and how,
And how quickly.
Well, I don't know, but I don't like retroactive legislation that changes a lot of people's situation for duck dye. I don't like it. Yeah. That we wanna give the municipality tools if another duck guy comes up somewhere else, that it's not like. There are other people saying this 100-foot setback, which is huge in low density residential areas.
Well, 100 is not bad, low density, high density, 100 feet is substantial.
Well, it's eliminative, but it's still a huge barrier to your potential cultivation in an area that has a mix of residential and agriculture.
Right, but for me, this is really about dense residential area, neighborhood.
Well, but then I wanna treat that case by case more than try to write a law that does all of that at once.
So,
Yeah,
So I'm gonna talk about poop. So,
and smell.
and
Smell and poop.
septic, right? So back in the day,
Okay.
municipalities used to regulate
yeah,
their septic all by themselves, right? So each municipality regulated their septic and had their own setbacks, their own design requirements, their own permit requirements. And it was a smorgasbord at best, and it was a complete circus at worst. And so the state moved to a system where the state regulates and permits all septic systems now, and there's standards that everyone needs to meet, including minimum standards. But professional engineers can be creative and they can design systems that meet the certain needs of any particular party. But you here have a situation where you don't want municipalities, current law, municipalities cannot regulate the cultivation. But they're so constrained that it's creating issues regarding conflict with neighbors. Same way that septic systems create conflict with neighbors. Why couldn't the board in a rule say any cultivation has to have a minimum setback from things like property lines, roadways,
yeah,
septic tanks, wells, etc.
yeah,
So that everyone is treated the same, and when you go and you look at a parcel, determine whether or not you are going to cultivate there or not. You can say, hey, the minimum setback that I have to comply with underneath the cannabis cultivation rules is 25 feet. This parcel isn't going to be worthwhile for me for cannabis cultivation. I've got to find another.
well, the retroactive piece is the concern
Well,
here.
this would be all prospective. All licenses are renewed. Not on a calendar year basis, but on a rolling 12-month basis.
Yes. Right, but
So-
you,
You can change the law
yeah,
and the law applies prospectively. No one is guaranteed a license from year to year.
right, so I'm maybe contemplating 50 feet, that if we don't wanna unravel this construct without a better one. I just think 100 feet for everybody is, they might have picked a piece of land that works very well. That is now in jeopardy because of 100 setback.
Well, there are the other setbacks too, there's 25-foot setbacks. Can you describe the difference in the neighborhoods that the 25-foot setback and 100-foot setback are
They're
envisioned?
very specific.
So if you look at section 17,
Yeah, help us.
municipalities are given the authority to adopt a bylaw identifying cannabis cultivation districts where outdoor cultivation is preferred within the municipality. And you already do these kinds of authorities for municipal
Right.
zoning. So you would just give the municipality to say, hey, this is where we prefer
Mhm.
that you do your cannabis cultivation over here because it's maybe not dense residential.
Mhm.
Maybe it's traditionally agricultural, maybe it's not gonna create conflicts with other commercial or industrial uses. And in those
So once they
districts,
establish those,
in those districts, the the maximum setback will be 25 feet.
Okay. And in districts that, in places where the cultivation district has not been adopted,
And it's up to 100.
then it's up to 100.
And then if the municipality has no zoning, then the max setback is 10 feet.
Can we make that more flexible for the cannabis control board to contemplate the appropriate setback, because you have different types of communities that don't have zoning?
Sure, I mean, if you want the board to set those minimum distances, you could do that.
Or was this an incentive for every town to actually finally adopt something, because 10 feet is nothing?
You're never gonna get every.
Yeah, right.
What
You
if
can
we
get
say,
every county.
What do you want?
what if we say, in a place that does not have zoning, the setback shall be 10 feet unless otherwise required by the cannabis control board in the licensing?
I'm okay with that. Almost,
Can we do that?
You have to give them some site condition authority, but that's
I
not
think
a
we need
bad
to give-
idea.
Yeah.
I think we also were talking about giving the cannabis control board, asking them for direction on some of this, even though it takes some time.
Right, but in the meantime, because the 10 is
It's nothing.
problematic.
10 is actually a pretty standard setback in zoning.
Our buffers are 25. We fought over buffers being 75 feet. I remember.
Right, but say the distance from your driveway to your property line, it's usually like 10 feet. Distance from the edge of the roadway to where you can put your fence, it's usually 10 feet. So 10 feet is a pretty standard minimum setback.
It's standard for something that doesn't have a big impact.
Yeah.
That in a community that doesn't have zoning, that is reasonably densely residential, 10 feet for the smell of cannabis is very close.
But then don't make it 10 feet.
I'm throwing numbers out here until I can talk to Bobby and see if they are contemplating something. But we could just do 25 for both,
Yes,
and
I
then
think that's
50
consistent.
for the bigger setback. And then ask the board to come back with other recommendations for how we handle this.
But the 100 feet or 50 feet, what is for towns that have not chosen to adopt a cannabis cultivation district. So.
Right.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought the 100 feet is when there is a district that's been adopted outside of that district is not large enough.
But if they might not have a cannabis cultivation district, they might just say your setback is 100 feet.
Right.
They have the power to do that, and I think
I don't know if they do have the power to do that now. Do they?
this language, no, if
Right,
they,
right, right.
if you pass this, they would
Right.
have the power to do that without needing to have a cannabis cultivation district.
If we change the numbers, they do. Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry. Well, right now, if there is not a cannabis cultivation.
No,
If there's not
no-
zoning, it's 10 feet.
No, but it says if no cannabis cultivation
Right.
district has been adopted by the municipality, the setback
No.
can be up to 100
Yes,
feet.
yeah.
I would like to make that number 50.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Oh, 4, okay. So
No, or it's the no cultivation.
you wanna make that 50 feet.
Yes.
And based on. Are these gonna be less residential areas? I mean, it sort of depends on me on how densely populated this is.
But we might not be able to do a good job of determining that in the next week, and we might ask the CCB to help us with something between, if there's no sighting or whatever, to give them more flexibility or more direction or something, but I think we need more guidance to get this right.
Maybe we could ask Mike to work with Brandon. Guidance language
I
for
start
the
doing that on
board.
Monday
Right, oh, is it Monday?
What's happening Monday?
or next 2 Mondays.
Monday.
It's not during, it's not like a session. It's the last week of session.
Yeah, the sixth.
Okay. They should have someone else in here then. This stuff,
Do you start Monday the 6th? Oh, how exciting.
just in time. Okay, so
I still think
people
we should
okay?
work with the cannabis, I think we want the
Yeah.
cannabis control board to weigh in on a couple
Right,
things.
but I'm looking at bringing down that 100 foot, because it's a pretty big change for people who have already been cultivating. And
And we can look at
making
it.
sense of the 10 and 25, and talking to Bobby, are people okay with that?
I would say to Bobby, we're contemplating 50 feet before we change it. And-
No, I'm not saying like, here, take or leave it, yeah, I just.
no,
want-
I would say this is what we're contemplating, and I would say that.
And maybe a study or a report back, I should
I
say.
think a report back is what, that's exactly what.
And I do like, unless the CCP feels otherwise about areas without zoning, they're so vastly different.
Right, and I would ask for a report back to see how it's working.
Okay, does anybody have any other pieces of this bill that they wanna discuss or change?
I think let's wait and see what ag says,
Okay,
and ag better get, Bobby talked on the floor about working over the weekend.
yeah, if you care about
I'd
the.
like to have Bobby work over the weekend.
If you care about the medical marijuana sections, please talk to Senator Lyons or someone on health and welfare, because we will not have time to rehash all of what they do on that piece. That will be left to Senate Health and Welfare, because we simply don't have time to do too much on that. We are getting 2 language considerations, or we have them. One,
Michelle's working.
Michelle's working on.
I have them.
Michelle had, no, I'm sorry, not those that are pretty benign, but the,
You mean from Michael?
no, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm moving on to events and
Sure.
advertising, so that might not be your wheelhouse. So we have 2 additional requests to consider, the market side of cannabis in terms of event permits. This might involve you, Representative Byron, we have 2 requests to consider event permits and changes to the advertising rules. Do people want to consider those further?
Sorry, we passed that bill, I thought. Are we sorry, we're going back to the bill we just.
No, there's a special events.
Special events special events.
Very limited
Yeah.
pilot, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah, should all have the language on your desks. I printed it out yesterday.
Oh, okay. Let's.
And
We are
okay, I'm just keeping going until Damien gets here, so if you have to go, that's also, you're allowed to do that. I think it's here, no, I have the advertising rules for the cannabis community. The advertising guidance, I don't know.
But that can be, you can just email me this.
Okay, this is not an amendment, this is just someone who gave me the thick regulatory advertising guidance that folks must follow. Here's the advertising change that I've seen. Which is striking out 2 sections of what they're required to do. The other proposal that was presented is to make the entire advertising section complaint driven, which would be in line with sports betting and other things that we allow blanket advertising, it feels like,
Which I think is not a good idea.
no, I know, if I knew I could complain about the Super Bowl sports betting ads, I probably would. But, the question is it fair to treat cannabis more like other vices and not require them to go through a very lengthy process to get any advertising out there? Okay,
They're seeing his request.
yeah,
That's David's, this is David's. No, David's request was the events and Sam's request was the advertising, I think. So
well,
we
I don't
had a
think-
pretty full discussion.
Can we hear from Rep. Byron? Yeah.
So the paper that you just had in your hand, Senator, with the highlighted sections
Yeah.
on it was worked on with David Wittenberg.
Okay,
There was
who's coming
another
next week?
advertising
Yeah.
component that David Silverman
Right,
was referring to. And
well,
then
no,
the-
Sam, I think Sam and.
Well,
David-
Sam's working with the same folks.
Perhaps,
It's-
yeah.
It's like 2
Yeah.
groups, yeah,
2 groups, 2 different conversations around advertising.
right.
And then the conversation around the special events license is amended language to H270, which was the short form I put in on the subject. And we
Okay.
put some form to the short form.
And
but it is a very rough draft.
can you tell us the gist of your events? Because at least you've gone through the conversation and it might.
Yeah, I don't have that right in front of me, but it basically sets up a pilot program with a limited number of licenses. To take a look at, I mean, in its most basic form of explaining it,
Mhm.
operating like a off-site alcohol consumption at a wedding or event. We try to mirror those regulations in language that governs closely to make it similar.
Okay. Do people want to take further testimony on events and advertising next week?
Yes, because I think we haven't really fully addressed. I mean, they were just
Yeah.
raised as the subjects and
Right.
we're gonna discuss David's letter.
Yeah, people heard
Answers.
enough that it was compelling to keep considering and bringing a few more witnesses in on these issues.
Yes, but make
Advertising, yes, that's, would events include smoking? Because they're secondhand smoke.
right.
I think so, I don't
Yeah,
know.
No, it is to be considered, but the language around that would be like an outdoor tented event. The legislative intent in my mind, and others should have spoken to it, was to not allow the indoor smoking of cannabis products.
Okay.
So that's where the detail comes in,
Okay.
the conversation.
So we can let's give 15 minutes to just understand the amendment. But if you have concerns, we won't continue after that with more witnesses, so we won't book a bunch of witnesses on events. We'll obviously get the CCB and probably Pepper, so that you're not continuing to speak for them in the transition unless you want to,
I
but
think,
Well, she has
I will
to
speak
be
to advertising, I think is what I should be here for.
yeah, okay. But I'm hearing advertising people do wanna explore this further.
Yeah, I don't know if it would work, but just advertising on sports betting, it's.
No, well,
Yeah,
just,
that is a big,
since we're saying that we made this level and now
Right.
we wanna.
No, I know,
To
I
that
mean,
level.
yeah.
I would like to understand the impacts of.
I would say,
fire.
I actually, we are taking testimony on sports betting next week in other
Okay.
realms.
So let's do that.
So we'll
before
do that.
maybe.
We don't harmonize all of our vices, we have different compliance mechanisms for all of them,
exactly.
but many of the,
Legalized two of them in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So
right,
we used to just have one, well, no, we had cigarettes.
We've had many vices.
right.
Humans create.
So many of those are
People are
commercial,
like tax
yeah.
it. So if you can find me another vice,
right.
We can talk about fine seconds.
Actually, that's
Yeah.
coming up next week,
long as I
expansion
have
of vice, yeah.
Hey, we could
My
legalize,
portfolios are all exceeding projections.
we
I
could
would like
legalize
that.
prostitution, Ann, and then you can have something to tax.
Okay.
Although maybe that's a service.
Michelle
we
is
don't
just
tax.
going.
It's like,
I have that.
prostitution.
Oh, yeah.
This is what she's
Well, we don't have Damien yet, but we do have ESEA, and one of the big open questions in H55 is about the PTSD consideration. So if we can't get to this bill because we don't get Damien in the next 10 minutes, I'd at least like people to be able to ask their questions about the
Right.
PTSD presumption and workers' comp. We do have a fiscal note, and you at least have the number, and Magali can email everybody the fiscal note.
For H55.
Oh, could we?
I'm sorry,
That
yes,
was my
we're
only
shifting here.
Yeah. We also print that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so we'll print out the fiscal note, we'll get VSBA in the regular. Yeah, we do have a
This
risk.
committee doesn't.
Yes, we have
We have
workers'
UI
comp
workers'
Came back,
in H55.
no.
This bill, or our,
Jurisdiction.
yes, our jurisdiction is.
They took it away.
Yeah.
Which is why I had to drop out of infoil because I wasn't.
Oh,
sure When I wasn't in finance.
yeah,
But they gave it back.
it might be an open question we can ask Bloomer,
They may not have gotten, I don't
Yeah.
know, but I didn't know that judiciary had auto insurance. And I am so
Yeah.
happy to give
Really?
them aftermarket parts and
yeah, right, I mean, if if you
all
want to
going to
double check workers.
I'll be right back.
Okay, and you have 3. Yeah, oops, sorry,
Are you going upstairs by any chance
No.
to Bloomer's office?
Do you want me to?
Give your message?
No, I think I'll just try.
I'm still waiting.
Let's, okay, we're still in committee, folks, for another 10 minutes. I would, so we're getting the fiscal note printed, but if Steve, you could identify yourself for the record and tell us a little bit more about, you know, how the fiscal impact weighs against, you know, the benefits that this could provide. There was another division that has to be included as well. And then we can ask questions about this piece and try to determine people's comfort with moving forward and keeping it in the bill.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Steve Howard, the Executive Director of the Vermont State Employees Association. And I'm here with Tom Abdelnour, who is our legislative coordinator and crackerjack researcher on this bill. So he.
Yes, and people would have gotten studies about this being included for more frontline workers around the country.
Yeah, so he could, I may call on him to answer some of the questions
Okay,
that
great.
come on. So, Madam Chair, we appreciate the committee's consideration of this provision, which I think, as I testified to earlier, actually did pass out of the committee jurisdiction in the House. Got stuck in appropriations, and there was a snowstorm and everybody left before
Oh, right.
the bill could be reviewed, but the fiscal analysts, the joint fiscal committee's fiscal note, I think,
Still has it in there.
their estimate is that the cost to the state could be anywhere between 0 and 400,000. But if
That's
we-
big range.
yeah, they said it's very hard to predict because it's not clear how many people would actually utilize this policy and how many people who are found by a medical professional to be suffering from PTSD would be denied the coverage or denied the presumption anyway. This protects them in case, in those rare instances where that would occur. This protects them and ensures that in those
Yeah,
in
isn't
those
that list of
categories.
people, I'm just trying to orient myself. Isn't that in the bill? It's not in the bill.
It's in the bill as just so you can look at the language. We've not made a decision about it. I just didn't.
Can you just remind us where it is? Because I feel like I saw that long list of the people that it would
Right now it includes EMS professionals and law enforcement and expand.
yes, it's on, sorry, it's on page 1516.
Firefighters
Employees
and EMS.
need.
That's correct, right? Firefighters and EMS professionals now have the presumption. This would expand it to law enforcement and to correctional officers and probation and parole officers.
Social workers.
It does, yes.
Family service workers, the DCF, the dispatchers at the public safety answering points.
It's classified employees, state operated therapeutic community residences or inpatient psychiatric hospital units. Public safety answering points, these are all classified employees of the family division of the DCF. And Vermont veterans, state, Department of State's attorneys, sheriffs, state's attorneys, employees of the state's attorney and sheriffs who are assigned to the state attorney's field office.
And we did have victims advocates who work in the state's attorney's office asked to be included. It would be slightly different language than that, but they were a lot.
They would be
If we
included
add
as
in the joint
employees
fiscal
of.
note, and if you're doing police officers, you're impacting
That's already.
municipal.
That's
No,
already
you're adding police officers, so you're
so
gonna have a
thankfully.
fiscal impact on towns that employ police officers.
I think they're all covered, all
Amen.
policemen are covered. Good work, how did it pass?
It's like 100 and something to 80.
Sweet.
It was a close vote.
Yeah, right.
Really close.
Yeah,
Thank you, Damien. Good work.
just to clarify, Madam Chair,
We're talking about PTSD,
the additional
which is
request
what you would have there.
Okay.
is from members of the criminal division in the Attorney General's office.
Mhm.
So the language you have before you includes the state's attorneys and would cover the victim advocates in the state's attorney's offices. There was a request from victim advocates in the criminal division, of the state's attorney's office. I believe there's one, maybe two of those, but
So we'd have to add language.
Classified employees in the criminal division of the Attorney General's office.
yes.
Yes.
Oh, it's in the attorney general.
Oh, that must be why I
Because it-
It's
I
because
worked with
that's-
Armina
yeah.
in the
In
state's
the state's
attorney's
attorney's-
office, and I was
she's
thinking,
now
of
in-
course that's where
yeah.
you- but yeah, she's in Montpelier every day, so,
Who
yeah.
are we covering?
Us, legislators. It does not say after a session that we get special care.
I just wanted therapy.
Well,
Two.
you get therapy meeting.
I asked Agatha, she said we could have.
So, I mean, the police chief told me, the former police chief, that it would cost something like $30,000. And I said, I just want a mutt or a lab that I can sit down and talk to and tell them how awful you're all treated.
Can you remind me where we see
I can
municipal?
put that in. We can bring our dogs to work. 'cause
That would be, yeah.
Love seeing
Now,
what
now
politics
we're
are.
back to the political
Of
thing.
course, there was the one that didn't exist in the pro tem's office that didn't fight somebody.
Right. Okay, so I do wanna clarify, police officers is already in here.
Yes,
This is adding state employees, so
Right.
police officers already do get this perception.
That's correct.
yeah,
That's
gave that
Yes, yeah,
4 years ago.
Yeah.
we did, yeah.
Those EMS professionals and law enforcement, and we're adding those states.
Mhm.
We're asking, in this proposal, that those categories, classified state employees be added and
Right.
the attorney general's criminal, some classified employees in the attorney general's office have asked,
Mhm.
since they do very similar work to the state's attorney's offices that they do.
So do people have other questions about this for VSEA or Damien?
I'd like to see some of the studies, because
Tom
literally,
sent those.
who
Yeah.
are we all?
Do you wanna pull one up,
Going,
Tom?
yeah.
Certainly, Madam Chair.
Helen?
I mean,
Okay.
so in the hopes that it would help the committee
Make-
move through an easy review of these various categories. The scientific literature, Madam Chair, on the way in which these positions affect these classes of workers is quite extensive.
Mhm.
In fact, it was so extensive that it
Are
was.
you able to get one up on the screen if, oh, she is.
I certainly can forward the list along that would allow the to be clicked. The members of the committee should already have
Why don't you
received
put
it.
that at the top of Senator Cummings' inbox? If there's
Happy to
something you
forward
can
it.
cite right now while we're talking.
Yes, in each of these cases, for each of these group of workers,
Yeah.
there are extensive peer reviewed studies from the NIH, from professional journals affecting various people, from psychological journals. And in short, I had to limit the number of resources for each of these to 3 for each job class because there was such extensive data suggesting that these folks regularly incur post-traumatic stress disorder as a
Yeah.
consequence of their work in these fields.
We have heard this in committee from corrections workers.
Yes.
From state hospital, just
And
therapeutic
GovOps.
setting workers. Yeah, maybe, I don't know which
We
committee,
heard this
but
in GovOps.
yeah, I mean, it's
And I'm happy to forward that along.
Injuries that I,
okay.
it's counterintuitive.
So with regard to the
Okay.
attorneys,
What they have
Senator
to do.
Cummings, I can say that there is a study here listed through the NIH's website entitled Prevalence and Predictors of Secondary Trauma in the Legal Profession, a Systematic Review, that shows that folks who are working particularly in the areas of the law concerning criminal prosecutions in the and this is what we hear as well firsthand
Yeah.
from attorneys and the deputy state's attorneys.
Yeah,
That the review of the traumatic details of the cases that they're routinely prosecuting
right.
are often so graphic and so disturbing as to really leave folks.
They are also called to sites of
That's
crime.
exactly correct.
I mean, they are, I've been with Sarah George where she spent all night at a crime scene.
Right.
That's exactly
And come out the
They're
next
often,
day.
very often asked to come.
With my son in this.
Yeah.
Yes,
You could
I know,
say
I mean, like,
Your son could also
I
speak.
don't know if Senator Clark's been holding back from.
I
They
am
definitely
holding back, because I'm trying to not mix my worlds, but I didn't, I have a son who returns from these, and they're.
They're there to advise law enforcement on evidence that should be collected.
Yeah.
But they see the scene. They also, I will say, the victim advocate, having been a victim advocate, I'll tell you, and Chair certainly understands this from her experience. You spend a significant amount of time with folks, often children, adults, people who have been abused and traumatized in many ways as a result of the crime
Mhm.
that the prosecutor's office is
Yeah.
prosecuting.
Yeah,
And it's pretty, it can, after time, particularly when you're assigned to the KUZI or to the
Yes.
child abuse
Yeah.
unit, it's
it's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
In fact, they rotate those staff out.
Right,
Because
having worked in a
Too
domestic
much.
violence nonprofit, you
Yeah.
have to be careful of the vicarious trauma all the time.
Yeah.
I'm seeing on page 2 of the fiscal note, or probably a relatively accurate count of who's in what department. So that would also help us see that the financial impact is more likely to come from Department of Corrections and DCF, which it doesn't sound like there's a huge argument about those two. And they make up the bulk of who we're considering in the financial impact.
No, I just worry. If we are saying that state jobs cause this much psychological harm to our employees, I'm just wondering about the jobs we're asking people to do, to make them be eligible for medical care for harm that they received as our employees.
Right.
Um,
We do ask that of police officers and firefighters, and there's just studies recognizing the level, the heightened level of stress and trauma we put people under in other situations is equal to that.
Yeah, and I think you've heard this certainly in government operations. Just on corrections itself, the life expectancy of a correctional officer is 55.
Yeah.
The life expectancy of the rest of us for lucky is 72, maybe plus or minus a few years. The PTSD rates nationally, I don't have Vermont data, but nationally, correctional officers exceeds that of returning for veterans. And it makes sense that it would be consistent with law enforcement.
Yeah.
As our members say, law enforcement has some time with the offender and then drops them off, and then we have for 20 years.
Yeah,
So hopefully over a 20-year period, things become better, but they don't always get better.
and they might just have someone for 2 weeks who's,
Could have somebody for 2 weeks.
coming off of drugs and very violent.
With regard to that, Madam Chair, as well, I would simply add, there's a particularly disturbing but salient study on this issue called PTSD symptoms at war zone level among correctional staff that was included in the little
Right.
packet that was.
So it's really just a recognition of what we're asking them to
That's
do.
correct.
We are not gonna be able to change that in this committee.
Yeah, can I just say something?
Yeah.
Because it's a horrendous job. And they should be covered under this bill, no question. But we also should be working to make the systems better
Mhm.
for both the folks who live there and the
Mhm.
corrections
Yes.
officers. And make it truly correction.
Right, facilities
now
make a
it's
huge
not.
difference.
Yeah.
Right, well, it's not just the facilities, it's the operations
Right.
and we're setting up
Mhm.
a really horrendous
I think-
situation.
Our members would agree with,
It's
so the
understaffing,
workers,
but
the
it,
caseload.
but it's also our systems. We should be looking at our systems and reducing this harm, even if they get, and if they're covered by workers' comp, that's good. But it would be better to not have the harm to start with,
Right.
right? For them, for their families.
And like,
No,
it
and
would
we
be better
have-
not to have court and
No,
we
this
have
isn't like
PTSD.
court.
Well, they just said it's like
No,
court, so we have
Right, on the
Right,
floor.
but our,
Yeah.
the legislature can't solve war.
The
The
bell is
legislature
suffering.
can't
No,
solve
yes,
this.
right.
No,
can't.
you're on
The
the
distinct,
In the meantime,
right,
but
it just
All right.
needs to be said.
we're going to the floor.
Yeah.
We're not voting on this bill
Yeah.
today, but I wanted to make sure you had a chance to talk about those studies and
thank you,
we could look at the fiscal note. We'll try to take this up early next week and vote it out.
thank you, Matt.
We didn't have a date in it. What folks will see next time is us cutting out the $1 million appropriation as well, because that traveled in the contingency fund.